voice can break the dark. A single spark ignites the heart. But if we turn when justice calls, the chains we forge will bind us all. When truth is silenced, when lies take hold, the cost is freedom, the soul grows cold. No one stands tall while another must fall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, defending every voice, defending every right. For the moment we falter, the moment we stall, we lose our own freedom when we let others fall. You can't stand free while others kneel. When justice fades, it's freedom they steal. An innocent condemned, a crime unspoken, and with it the bond of liberty is broken. No tyrant rules without our consent. Oppression thrives where silence is spent. Stand for the weak, the silence the small, or freedom will crumble for us all. We're mavericks of freedom, guardians of the light, fighting for the truth, for what is just and right. For the rights of one are the rights of all. We rise or we fall by answering the call. Even those we may oppose deserve the rights we all uphold. For if we deny them what is fair, we build our own prison in despair. The fight's not easy, it never will be, but justice for one is the key to be free. We stand as mavericks, together we strive, defending the rights that keep freedom alive. We're mavericks of freedom, rebels in the fight, upholding every truth, protecting every right. When one is oppressed, we're all in the thrall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all. So take a stand, let your courage rise. Defend the truth, don't compromise. For the soul of the world, the writing's on the wall. Freedom for one depends on freedom for all.
Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel, everybody. Big program lined up for you here tonight. A clash of two very different ideologies, worldviews, realities. It all centers around this standoff that is brewing between the owners of an ostrich farm and their supporters and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which is a department of the federal government of Canada that has ordered the entire flock of the ostriches to be culled because they became infected with avian flu. On the surface, it just looks like some dispute over whether the bird should be killed or kept alive. But there's so much more to the discussion. It is in itself, it embodies, it encompasses just about all the issues that we're facing as a society right now, as a country in Canada for sure. It encapsulates all the issues that we faced, in a way, almost all the issues that we faced during the pandemic and even the Freedom Convoy. We'll get into that tonight. I have an interview that we will share with you with the owner of the farm, Karen Esperson, owner of one of the owners. It's a family-run operation, Universal Ostrich Farm, out in, I believe it's Edgewood, British Columbia. So we have that coming up. We also will take a look at the other top news stories of the day. Wildfires out in Alberta, Newfoundland as well today. Mark Carney meeting with premiers after his meeting yesterday with Donald Trump, and predictably conservative pundits, live streamers, influencers, highly critical to say the least. On the other side, liberals are very supportive. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle in terms of how successful that meeting was. Also, Michael J. Fox is about to release a new book talking about his experience starring in the Back to the Future movies and also in that iconic sitcom that became a staple for a while on primetime television, Family Ties. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight as well. I don't usually talk too much about celebrity news. I don't really like it, but in this case, we'll just give it a mention. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. I think Michael J. Fox's story is in many ways inspirational and kind of uplifting too, because we keep thinking about the before times, and boy, those were the before times, weren't they? Well, we'll dig into the today times when we come back on the other side of this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right. Let us begin with this. This is a video released by Mark Carney, Canada's newly elected Prime Minister, today. Not elected today, this is him today. And his PR thrust after yesterday's sit down with Donald Trump. Boy, what a stressful meeting that must have been for Mark Carney, sitting there next to DJT. And I saw one video which was critical of Carney because he didn't say a lot. Donald Trump sucked the oxygen out of the room again. It was something like almost a full half hour that Trump spoke versus just a few minutes of Carney weighing in from time to time. But I don't think that's bad. I think that's wise. Often, the less said, the better. And and things seemed to be deteriorating as the meeting went on. As you got to the end, after Trump spoke again about making Canada the 51st state, then Carney spoke up. And he said, Trump said, that's something the Canadian people will need to decide for themselves. That's going to take some time. And then that's when Carney spoke up and he said, well, Mr. President, actually, some things are never for sale, like the White House and all your gold fixtures. Oh, the golden era. Yeah. So I think he was wise not to say too much, because after that, things started to slide downhill a little bit. And then Trump started to repeat we don't need anything from Canada. We don't need your resources. We don't need your gas. We don't need anything from you guys. You suck. Well, why do you want us then? If you don't need us, can't you just leave us alone? But that's me speaking. Here's Carney today in his PR video post-Trump meeting.
I conveyed to the president today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America when we work together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Kananaskis in Alberta.
And I hope that music isn't copyrighted. I hate it when they do that, because then we get copyright strikes. And did you see that picture of Trump pointing to that picture? I think what he was saying was like, and there's another old guy that, yeah, I don't know who he is, but he's dead. Giving Carney a history lesson. But I put a gold frame on it. That's the important thing. Okay. I digress. So, well, that's what it's come down to, and you know it. That's what it's all about. That's the depth of politics today. It's all crazy stuff, and it comes down to the most important thing is redecorating the Oval Office with gold. Doug Ford not caught, but caught. No, this is Doug Ford in a scrum with media after a meeting today between the premiers and Mark Carney. Of course, this is all about Team Canada. Here we go.
So we just had a great conversation with the Prime Minister and all the premiers. We all congratulated him on his victory, but also congratulated him on how well he did yesterday and the restraint he showed. I don't think I'd have the restraint that he had yesterday, to be very frank, but in saying that, I think it's a good start on a new relationship. I saw President Trump said really kind things when he just tweeted out, so that's good. It's good for the country. It's good for the U.S. Yeah. Had an opportunity to speak to the U.S. ambassador this morning and get his take on things. I think everyone's feeling relatively good on the meeting yesterday, so that's a good start. We had that conversation with the rest of the premiers. I think Prime Minister Carney did a really good job in really reaching out to the West, and I was pretty blunt. I said, it's time that your government starts showing some love to Saskatchewan and Alberta, because as I said, like, the last Prime Minister showed no love. Matter of fact, to the contrary. So it's nice that we're heading out there to Saskatchewan for an FMM meeting I think it's on June the 1st and June the 2nd, which is a good olive branch, and had a good discussion. So I'm a big believer of pipelines, big believer of getting rid of C-69, and we need to unite this country And the way we're going to unite this country, as I mentioned to the Prime Minister in front of the premiers, show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And let's start diversifying our trade when it comes to oil. Let's start building pipelines west, east, north, and yes, south as well. But they're getting a discount, by the way. We ship them $100 million worth of oil. They turn it into $300 million and ship it out. I think the number, we're giving them a discount of 20%. Well, let's start shipping it out, because we know, and I've mentioned that to the U.S. ambassador today, that if you take oil off the trade, they have a $50 billion surplus with Canada. And I encourage them, let's start moving forward. Let's sign a deal, and let's bring certainty and build this AmCan fortress that I've been talking about for a number of months. And that was our conversation for the most part.
Are you hopeful that you can diffuse the Alberta secession movement with this kind of talk? I mean, I don't know if there's any talk about Premier Smith's potential referendum.
Well, I just always say, united we stand, divided we fall, and that was my message today. And let's continue making sure that we unite the country, not divide the country. And I spoke pretty strongly in support of Alberta and Saskatchewan because they've been ignored for the last 10 years. They've been treated terribly, to be very frank. And I think the new Prime Minister Carney, understands that, and he's going to be out there having great conversations. And just that one move, bringing FMM out to Saskatchewan, that's a big move. So everyone congratulated him on how he performed. Didn't matter what political stripe we came from.
Were there any discussions on breaking down interprovincial trade barriers?
Yeah, we did. We actually had that discussion. He said by July the 1st, but I said, let's all the premiers, let's get together, at least sign all the MOUs. So, who's coming up in the batting cage? PEI, Saskatchewan. Hopefully, I just text Scott right now and said, hey, let's sign that deal. Even Danielle, we're texting back and forth, and she wants to sign an MOU too. So, we do get along, by the way, just to let you know. We text each other. Quebec, something? I think Premier Legault is working on something right now, but I really encouraged Premier Legault to get that pipeline through Quebec. The last poll I saw was in the high 70s that people want that pipeline. So it's going to help the entire country. We don't have to be so reliant on the U.S. This is a game changer now. This is an opportunity to build ports in the north, no matter if it's through James Bay or through Manitoba up there in Churchill. That's what we have to do to protect our country. We also have to get minerals out of the ground, not just here in Ontario, right across the board. I think the date that we're always looking for is we have to get permits before 2 years and start moving. And that's right across the board for the territories and for the other provinces that have critical minerals.
Premier, do you think that the Prime Minister did enough yesterday to get the tariffs lifted?
Yeah, I think so. No one expected to sign a deal, but I'll tell you, it was a massive step forward that he went down there, and they seemed to be getting along quite well, and he said they were getting along. So I think this is huge compared to the last Prime Minister.
Premier, do you have any sense of what he said to the President in the luncheon behind closed doors about getting tariffs?
Well, not to get into it deep because I wasn't there, but he did encourage the the President, to move forward and let's get this deal signed. It's beneficial for both countries, and that was kind of the message that we heard today.
Your government's been under fire for not doing more to tackle this measles outbreak, which continues to grow, or for making Dr. Moore more readily available to the media.
Okay, so that's enough. It's I think if you look at it and try to be impartial about it, yeah, I think that he did show a lot of restraint and he didn't get Zelensky'd. He didn't get ambushed. He got out of there pretty much unscathed that way. But I see, the critics from the peanut gallery chiming in. He talked too much. He didn't talk enough. What a clown. All the usual stuff, whatever. Let's just, I hope for success, because that's what the country needs. We need it. So I just want him to be successful for the people. Okay, what else do we have tonight? Oh my God. I'm going to take a little break. We're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard tonight too. The Wall Street Journal has leaked information about spying on Greenland. Should be making bigger headlines than it is, but Tulsi Gabbard is not happy. I'll talk about the hypocrisy surrounding all of that on the other side of this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, in an exclusive story that is now being picked up by other media outlets, published a story about the United States ramping up espionage, spying in Greenland. Oh, you think Trump's not serious about annexing Greenland? You think he's not serious about taking over Canada? Well, it seems some people within the United States, the U.S. government, even its security agencies, are concerned about Trump doing that because they are being ordered to take action in a preliminary way to pave the way for possibly that kind of action. Here's fallout from that Wall Street Journal article yesterday saying Denmark is going to summon the U.S. envoy over this report that Greenland is going to be spied on more. The Greenland Spying Directive, CIA, NSA, and Defense Intelligence Agency, all included in this collection emphasis message. Read you some of this article to highlight the issue. It says Denmark has said it will summon the U.S. ambassador to Copenhagen to respond to reports that U.S. intelligence agencies have been ordered to increase espionage in Greenland. The Danish foreign minister, Lars Løkke Rasmussen, said on Wednesday, today, that he was concerned about the report in the Wall Street Journal, telling the Ritzau news agency, "It worries me a lot," he says, "because we don't spy between friends." Well, they do. They just don't talk about it too much, and it's more friendly spying. But not this time. Speaking on his way to a meeting in Warsaw, he added, quote, "I can't know if it's true because it's in a newspaper, but it doesn't seem to be strongly rejected by those who speak out. That worries me." High-ranking officials working under Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, issued the instruction to agency heads in a collection emphasis message. Such messages customarily help to set intelligence priorities and direct resources and attention to high-interest targets. The Central Intelligence Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, and the National Security Agency were all included in the message. It told chiefs to study Greenland's independence movement and attitudes to American efforts to extract resources on the island, according to the Journal, citing 2 unnamed officials familiar with the matter. Bottom line is, all the intelligence agencies have been ordered to start looking at sort of anti-government groups, people opposed to the government, people, organizations, activist groups that are sympathetic, maybe even supportive of the idea of Greenland becoming part of the United States. They're looking for, they're looking to identify those people, single them out, and then either maybe contact them to have them work from within inside Greenland to help facilitate some sort of an annexation or takeover. Or the other way that this sort of thing would be done is to encourage their anti-government activities by funneling money to them in ways that maybe even they, the recipients, are not fully aware of, making them an unwitting participant in a foreign infiltration and possibly even a takeover of the country. Well, where have we heard that kind of thing happening before? What have I been saying right here about what's going on in Kazakhstan? Do you still have one eye closed, or are you starting to open the other one? Are we waking up yet, Canada? How loud do I have to get? How obvious does this have to be? They're doing it in Greenland. Do you think maybe they might be doing some of that right here? Could that be? Oh, come on. It's the Americans. They're our friends. Yeah, well, it's a different time, different situation, different president, for sure. A totally different scenario. And you're hearing it. Our relationship with the United States will never be the same again, because everything that we've known since World War II is now gonzo, out the window, no longer applicable, not in the same way. The world is being reshaped, and Donald J. Trump is at the center of, dare I say it, the storm. It appears the storm has arrived, even as we arrive on the anniversary of the end of World War II, another ceremony held in Ontario today, a big parade to be held tomorrow, Victory Day parade in Russia tomorrow. And Trump's jealous. He's jealous of Putin. He's jealous of the Victory Day parades. He backtracked on renaming these holidays and national occasions to mark the ends of wars and honor veterans. He's backed off on that a bit, but he's back out of the game today talking about how the United States should be celebrating these victories, as he says. Listen to the tone.
And I really believe it's a shame. I was watching for the last week, and I noticed France, I noticed other countries all getting ready for Victory Day. And I said, that's sort of strange, because David just added something. He said, we also rebuilt the world. And I didn't have that, and I should have that. That was a big factor. But I noticed all of the countries, Russia, having a big day tomorrow. And by the way, they lost millions of people, and they were absolutely a major factor. But there was no major factor like us. We won the war, and we won it with the help of others. But everybody was celebrating but the United States of America. And I said, I think it's time that we start celebrating victory. And that's what we're doing. So now.
Well, it's just, it's the tone. It's the choice of dates. It's the realignment of American history, Western history with regard to World War II. When you actually sort of mark the end of that portion of the war with Germany. What happened in Japan is a little bit different, but it's more in alignment with Russian history than American history. But it's mostly the tone. After World War II, we've honored the sacrifices made. We grew up. I grew up in a time during the Cold War, after World War II, that I was privileged, as we all were, to be living in a time of unprecedented peace, enjoying the peace dividend. But that peace came because of cooperation, trade between nations, the real weapon of NATO and the West that ensured that prosperity was, and peace was prosperity, was a strong economy, strong trading relationships, cooperation, a recognition that NATO and the organization known as NATO was helping to prevent the proliferation, the spread, the expansion of nuclear weapons, so that fewer countries would have nukes, not more. Everything after World War II in that regard, in my view, and I think the view of most, until maybe today, has been that it was about peace. And World War II is remembered by those who fought it as a horrific, bloody war that cost millions of lives. It was a time of incredible sacrifice and tragedy and waste, destruction, that came about because of lessons not learned from World War I. One thing it was not was a sporting event, but it seems like that's the way Donald Trump sort of views it. It's like victory, it's like they won a game or something. But we never really honored the fallen and those who made sacrifices during World War II and World War I in that way. That's why everything has been subdued and respectful about honoring, not celebrating. There's a difference. I don't want to celebrate a victory. I want to honor those who fell, who made the ultimate sacrifice, and who just made sacrifices. And I want to remember. Not that I was alive during World War II, but I was during the Cold War, and I was taught and saw and experienced, lived through the effects of World War II and enjoyed the benefits, the peace dividend that came after. But I'm sure that to my kids and to the kids, the young kids today, to so many people, it must seem like ancient history. And that's why we have to relearn the lessons of the past, I guess. And why the world is being reshaped today. Because some people have twisted ambitions, a distorted view of history, pointing at pictures on the walls of the White House, clad in gold. And they clearly don't understand the depth and the meaning, and haven't learned the real necessary lessons to keep us safe. Instead, forging ahead with some bizarre new vision of what the world could be, should be, ought to be, or what he wants it to be. And he's not the only one. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with that Victory Day parade in Moscow. A legitimate military target, frankly, for Ukraine. From a PR perspective, probably not wise for them to attack it. I doubt they will, but you never know. And today, J.D. Vance coming out and saying in another important turn of events and comments that he said today that Russia seems to be asking for too much. So much for peace within 24 hours or even before taking office. That was a failure. Bombast. But there's certainly a change taking place, and now that they have this minerals deal in place, things seem to be changing. The Trump administration pivoting. And yet everything still seems to be in flux. And I don't know about you, but now, even now, more than even since the beginning of the pandemic, do you feel it? Do you feel it? It's like it's slipping away. It's just slipping away. I just want to, I feel like I can grab it and pull it back. That's why I'm here every night. But it's being pulled away. What is it that we're losing? It's freedom. Maybe even peace.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, we're going to get to that interview on the ostriches very shortly, very soon. What else do we have? Wildfires out in British Columbia. Let's just check in on that. Or not British Columbia, Alberta. And I believe also Newfoundland. So, yes. We have wildfires posing a risk to several communities throughout northern Alberta. Tonight, 2,000 hectare fire. And the investigation has indicated, contrary to those who want it to be arson, it was ignited apparently, according to investigators, by a quad runner in a public recreation area near Redwater. It happened, was ignited on Saturday evening and is threatening residents of the town and rural residents in Thorhild County, Sturgeon County, which is in charge of the fire response there, is telling us that the blaze grew beyond retardant lines, dozer guards, and they had other preventive measures in place as well today, including today, but it's grown beyond that. And with the weather conditions the way they are, it's very dry, very, very dry again. And so the conditions with high winds as well are such that the fire is spreading. Although yesterday it looked like about 70% of the blaze was contained, I think that it has spread more. And we saw yesterday too that some homes were destroyed. In fact, a whole row of townhouses and an apartment complex. So we'll be keeping an eye on all of that. Let me just check in to see what the latest is here on is it Newfoundland? Yeah. So out in Newfoundland, we have evacuation orders in some parts of Edmonton. And then we've got out in Newfoundland, we've got a large fire out of control. This is being reported. Okay, so where exactly is this? Provincial government out there reporting firefighters have responded to this fire near Badger Lake. And the RCMP has issued a public advisory saying motorists should expect a lot of road closures out there. So I don't have video readily queued up here for this tonight, but just mentioning it because if you are in Newfoundland or if you are in Alberta in those areas, be vigilant, stay safe, and tune into your local media to get the latest updates in case they issue evac warnings for where you're at. All right. Now we need a little bit of time here. Going to get to the interview with Karen Esperson of Universal Ostrich Farms, cranked up here shortly. I just need another moment here. I need to take another little break while I have a lot of buttons to push before we get to her interview. So stay with me. We're almost there, folks. And I know this is the big one. This is the one you want to hear about. We're going to bring you up to date on what's going on with those 400 ostriches that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency wants to cull.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Just a little comment on what is going on with that espionage story with regard to Greenland. You know, Tulsi Gabbard has come out and she has, if you don't think it's a real thing, like she's commenting on it. She's not denying it. She came out and instead criticized the Wall Street Journal, accusing them of being irresponsible and putting national security at risk, which makes me laugh. Because Tulsi Gabbard, before she was head of the NSA. You know, do you remember what she was all about? Praising Julian Assange all the time and other leakers, criticizing the US government for going after them and anybody that really leaked information from the government, saying that it was an affront to freedom and free speech and personal rights. And now, now she's sitting there angry with the Wall Street Journal. And Trump came out just the other day too and took shots at the Wall Street Journal, basically saying it's fake news. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a very credible organization. I was just saying to somebody on the phone today, you know, the problem really with the mainstream media is that it's not so much that they lie to people. So occasionally they do, because you have some people, especially people who are paid to provide their opinions, but it's occasionally bias will come into something and, you know, you'll get a lie. No question. And I don't think any media outlet out there, very few, if any, maybe even just unintentionally, they all lie at some point, it seems. But I think more to the point, it's not that the media outlets lie to you. It's that the media, the mainstream media, has been lied to. Sometimes the mainstream media is lied to, and the reporters either don't catch it or they just let it go because it's coming from an authoritative source, an authoritative voice, a public official, an official. Therefore, that's the official word. You get it all the time. You know, you have to go to a credible source. Well, who do you go to get a quote on a story? Well, you go to somebody in charge, right? Somebody who can affect public policy. If they're in charge of public policy, they have a lot of credibility, a lot of public trust, and you get a comment from that person. People believe it. It carries a lot of weight. And who are you to criticize? That's the official word. That's what is done. You get your message from mainstream media, which is getting its messaging from government or even just, a high up executive at a company, whoever the authoritative voice is in the case of that particular story. And people tend to believe that. But sometimes, as in the case of the pandemic, there was, some information that was flowing that maybe was questionable. And it was coming from officials. When you think about it, I mean, I know how the chain of information works. And that's largely what the biggest problem was. It wasn't so much that you had reporters out there intentionally lying to you. It's that they're interviewing people who maybe were lying to you, maybe on both sides. And then the reporter is just there to try to be impartial or to deliver credible information from credible sources. And they're under directive to deliver information from credible sources, so they go to the government. Well, today, if you go to that website from the federal government in the United States that deals with vaccinations and those kinds of issues, it's completely flipped upside down now to what it was. So who are you going to believe? Now, people with the opposite narrative are in charge in a lot of those key positions. They're the go-to person for media. They're the people that even the public will go to. But are they telling you the truth? So the government before, were they telling you the truth, or is this government telling you the truth? And now people are kind of having to decide. And I think that the people, you see, do you understand where I'm coming from on this? And so our trust in mainstream media has been undermined, and yet we need a strong media because it forms one of the pillars that holds up our institutions, our society, our government, our democracy. We need the media there to do exactly what they're doing out in Alberta and Newfoundland today, which is also to deliver credible, believable, truthful information about public emergencies to keep people safe. We need to restore that trust. And it's very difficult when you've had really public officials delivering information that half the population in either direction doesn't trust. It puts us in a very dangerous situation. It's one of the main things that sort of undermines our society. It doesn't sort of undermine it, it just does. Undermines it. And that's extremely dangerous. Very disappointing. Okay, let's take a little break. We're going to come back on the other side and get into this interview with Karen Esperson of Universal Ostrich Farms out in British Columbia. And I'll just preface this a little bit for you. This is a story about an outbreak of avian flu. And it has been getting a lot of attention on especially some freedom-oriented or even conservative, if you will, live streams, and some mainstream media attention as well. In fact, I would say it's getting even more attention on some of the mainstream media outlets than it is from independents, television stations. They were just on a television station, I think was it Buffalo? I think it was an ABC outlet. That was just yesterday, tapping into this story. But I have not seen anybody really give it the full treatment, to really dig into it, to explore the real issues that the whole thing encapsulates. My interview with Karen will, I think, address that. I think you're going to get more depth. You're going to, by the time we're done, we will go to the phone so you can weigh in on this as well. And we will, I think, explore this issue in a much broader context, because it isn't just about the birds. It's about personal rights. It's about property rights. It's about government powers, whether a government is overreaching. It's about public health. It's about public trust in institutions. It is about freedom and where the limits on freedom should be drawn. It's about the rule of law. It's about all of these things. And it all centers around these ostriches, which is why you have this protest brewing out there. And it's being identified by certain political activists, even, I would say, as maybe a flashpoint, a vehicle through which they can make a political point, or maybe even destabilize things, which might be part of the goal as well. So there's a political battle, a real standoff between government agents and protesters appears to be a real possibility. It's a very dangerous situation out there, not just because of the health risks involving not just the avian flu virus, the H5N1, it's also about COVID, because that is really where a lot of this pivots from back in 2020, when this farm became sort of a research facility for COVID research, alternative treatments being investigated through the use of these birds to develop antibodies by injecting them with COVID spike protein. And that's back in 2020. Now we're getting into avian flu research. This is pretty heavy duty stuff and major issues all wrapped up in this stuff. So we'll take a little break, come back, and we're gonna dip into this interview with Karen Esperson on the other side of this. So don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, so I did do this interview earlier in the day today. So it's recorded. And the reason we're running it now, not at the top of the hour at the beginning of the program, is because it took some time for it to actually process and render out. So I'm going to run this for you. The very beginning is chopped off because there was a little technical glitch. But it's just a preamble, really, where I'm just introducing myself and talking to Karen to let her know who I am and setting up the interview with her. So we just kind of joined this thing in progress about 60 seconds in, just so you understand why the conversation might seem a little disjointed off the top here. But let's pick it up, and here we go.
Samples, sent them off to our vet.
So she's talking about really the infection as it began.
Once we get the samples back.
This infection with this H5N1 avian flu virus, and they'd had some other issues out there as well. She digs into this. I'll just let this roll, and I just hope it doesn't confuse you off the top. We're joining this conversation midstream, about 60 seconds in.
And it was a really bad bacteria. And so that bad bacteria did kill only about 10 birds because we were very proactive and quarantined any birds. And the same thing this time, we started quarantining immediately. But it was at Christmas time, so we weren't able to get...
So let me just give you the preamble on this, okay? Universal Ostrich Farm was a farm where they were producing ostriches for two reasons. One was for food. They would send them to slaughter and then to market. They also were engaged in selective breeding, with importing ostriches from places even like Africa, certain strains of ostriches, and then breeding hardy animals, and then selling the offspring, the eggs and the offspring to other farms. And the research that I've done indicates that as much as 20% of Canada's ostriches actually have some sort of a link genetically now to this farm. So they've been involved in this business for quite some time. Now in 2020, they had to pivot their business because the pandemic hit and the slaughterhouses in their area all shut down. They didn't have any way to have the ostriches processed and get them to market. So they became a kind of a research facility originally for COVID research because the pandemic was on. And what they were doing was injecting the hens with COVID spike protein, actually a COVID virus that had been rendered inert, essentially, or supposed to be rendered inert. And then so it would be effectively sort of not contagious. Always some risk, of course, with something like that there may be some residual possibility of infectious qualities, but through heat and so on, the virus was to be rendered inert. So they would inject the hens, and she talks about the humane way that they, try to address that, because they wanted not to inflict pain on the hens, but they would inject the birds with this COVID spike protein. They would then produce eggs that were abundant in COVID antibodies. That was the research. And they were sending these eggs to a research facility in Quebec, which then later, at some point, shut down for various reasons. It's not entirely clear why, but their association, their contract, which can be very lucrative because these eggs can be worth up to like $40,000 a piece, apparently. The COVID facility, the research facility out there in Quebec, their contract ended with the change of ownership of that facility. So they didn't have that available to them anymore. And now they pivot to working with a researcher in Japan who she talks about. And this researcher taking the eggs and trying to develop masks for a response to the COVID pandemic that were to be infused with antibodies so that you could wear the mask. And the theory being, if you're breathing in the COVID virus, the antibodies impregnated into these masks and a third layer of fabric would neutralize the COVID virus before it gets into your respiratory system. The research still up in the air, I guess, not really proven at this point, so the masks haven't come to production, but that's essentially where they were at. And then last January, as they were, in the process of still working with this researcher in Japan, they got hit with a avian flu outbreak. And then that threw everything right into chaos. And then the Canadian Food Inspection Agency became involved because, of course, their policy is that if a flock of birds becomes infected, they would cull them, kill them. And Karen and her family, of course, didn't want that to happen. And that's where this dispute begins. And she explains it all in this interview. Let's go back to the beginning. I hope that sets it up for you in a more meaningful way than I've been seeing from some of the other broadcasts out there, because they just haven't been quite as thorough as all of that.
Every farm does. We take tissue samples, send them off to our vet, and once we get the samples back, then we'll know what we have. And we said back in 2020, we had something they called pseudomonas, which we thought was really strange that we would get it, but they said it could come off the hand of just a tourist, and it was a really bad bacteria. And so that bad bacteria did kill only about 10 birds because we were very proactive and quarantined any birds. And the same thing this time, we started quarantining immediately, but it was at Christmas time, so we weren't able to get our tissue samples in until after Christmas. So being that we quarantined, we thought we were doing everything right. The government phoned. They said, yeah, it doesn't sound like it. Our biggest mistake was we opened our doors and said, hey, come on in. You know what? We've been in this industry 34 years. We don't believe that we have anything. So we've never had any H5N1 or avian flu on the farm. So sure, you can eliminate it. So they came, but off of 2 simple PCR tests. That was it, 2. And PCR tests only test for the H5, not N1. And apparently you need N1 to adhere to anything. So the test came back positive, and coming back positive, they immediately, within 42 minutes, they had signed a cull order for our farm. And the cull order was to destroy all of the animals. Even though we had immediately told them, we noticed that half the farm hadn't showed any signs. So we realized back in 2020, because they were showing the same symptoms, that half our farm must have had H5N1 back then. But they were showing a resistance to it. And so with the resistance, not one bird got a sniffle, nothing. They were totally healthy, and they've remained healthy. We never lost one bird on that side of the farm. But yet they had still planned on culling the entire farm. So it's been a battle, because we knew we were going to hit herd immunity, and that's the biggest thing. Is we said ostrich have a very strong immune system, and when we hit herd immunity, then these are the survivors. And we're like, why would you come for the survivors? That doesn't make sense. And that's exactly what happens. When CFIA shows up at your door, they're coming for the strong ones. The weak ones have already died off. In nature, isn't that what happens? The strong ones live and the weak ones die off, and they hit herd immunity and they go on. And so that mutation of the virus weakens down because you've got a herd immunity against it. But what they're doing is they're literally stomping out, and that's their program, is to stamp everything out.
And so just to pause for a moment and let you know, they have this ongoing court battle. They were able to delay the cull, and this battle is still ongoing. They're waiting for a judgment from the court, which really centers around whether proper procedure was followed. We get into it a little bit here, but I just want to mention that so that you understand where we're at with this milestone right now that is turning into a political protest. It really has. It's a legal battle. It's a political protest. It is also a public health issue. It's an issue that is important to farming, to the poultry industry, to their ostrich industry. And I'm trying to give you as balanced a perspective on this as possible. We'll get into the CFIA response at the end of the interview to try to give you some balance here as well and full perspective and context. Let's go back to the interview with Karen.
And they take it out, and then they put in naive immune systems back in place. And then the next time the migratory ducks come through next year, guess what? We'd be right back in the same boat. But right now, we have...
Because she's saying that the reason the ostriches became infected with H5N1 avian flu is because ducks flew through on a migratory route and brought the virus into the compound on the farm where the ostriches live, because they're kept in the open air. That's what they think was the cause of the outbreak.
Of the survivors, we have the ones that are resistant to the virus. So instead of allowing the virus to mutate to get stronger, we should stop it and keep these birds. They're resistant against it, and it'll make the virus mutate down to where it could be just like a common cold kind of thing. So we feel, in the sense, this is an attack also maybe on our food source, because we need this food source. This is our backyard farms that they're going after, all our organic animals, all the smaller farmers, not the big commercial. They put us into a poultry division immediately with chickens, commercial chickens. And we're like, we're not chickens, we're ostrich. We're totally different. Our animals live to up to 75 years of age. And so they insisted that we were in the chicken division and gave us all our criteria that we had to pass was according to a commercial chicken.
I see. So, how did you? Some people were telling me that you were involved with some natural homeopathic COVID remedies or research starting back when the pandemic took hold. That you kind of pivoted or something with your farm. What was that about? How did you get involved with that? That's sort of related to this in some way, isn't it?
Yeah, we absolutely do believe that it related to this, because back in 2020, when the pandemic hit, we had all our plants got shut down, tourism got shut down, our sales got shut down, and then we started researching Dr. Tsukamoto's work in Japan and realized this amazing scientist was tapping into the immune system of the ostrich. Now, ostrich have one of the strongest immune systems of any land animal. And we thought, wow, these animals just keep surprising us and giving back. And so we started, we wanted to work with Dr. Tsukamoto, but at first we couldn't because of everything through the world. The borders, everything was shut right down for any products passing anywhere. So we found a lab in Quebec, and we started to work with them. They were a chicken facility, and they were very intrigued by our ostrich. So we worked with them, and we built antibodies with the ostrich. And that's what we do, is we give them a tiny antigen of a dead virus just to the hens. And within 2 weeks, they build an immunity. In another 2 weeks, they take those antibodies, those amazing antibodies, and they put them into their eggs. Now, the antigen we give is the smallest amount, because it's the same amount they give a chicken. So we were like, wow, if we only need that tiny bit that they give a chicken, well, then nothing's going to happen with our birds. And we did monitor, check them, because we love them. They're our pets. And they had no fever, nothing. They went on to clucking. We walk amongst our birds, so when we give the antigen, they didn't even know they were getting it. And they went on and started to lay the eggs. We had them tested, and we were like, oh my goodness, we're 98% effective for COVID-19 antibodies. And so we went from that point of being 98% effective, we were just on cloud nine. That was blocking it. Then the next year what we did was we went on to test for, sorry, I got a little sidetracked there for a second. Then the next year we went on and they thought, oh, we can build this antigen to be universal. So we went on and we did the antigen, and sure enough, the test results came back that we neutralized. So we went beyond the crown of the virus, and we actually went to the nucleus of the cell, and we neutralized the virus. So this was an amazing discovery, and we were like, we're producing natural antibodies that can actually help cure somebody. Oh my goodness, this was amazing, and that we're neutralizing it. So they were testing the variants, and we had passed 98% effective. The last one test was Omicron. Then a week later, the lab was just so excited that we had all this information of these natural antibodies. And a week later, we get a phone call that they've sold the lab. The owner of the lab had a non-competition clause, was not allowed to talk to us anymore. Our project was closed down permanently. And we thought, wow, that was a really hard thing to handle for the farm, for sure, and a major blow. But then we thought, okay, well, we reached back out to Dr. Tsukamoto, and Dr. Tsukamoto said, hey, things have opened up. I absolutely want to work with you guys. He has 50 ostrich of his own. He loves them. They're like his pets. And he said, I love the idea that you guys walk amongst them and that you love your animals. And he said, so it's fabulous. I'm in. Let's work together. And so we started to work together, and we were actually doing antibody projects. And the last one that we were working on was a diet pill that had benefits for diabetics, and again, all natural. And you would just take this pill before you ate, and you, over 70 days, could lose an average of 30 pounds. But it had benefits to diabetes, that if you were diabetic, it would lower your blood triglycerides and your blood glucose levels. So it was like amazing, a home run. And again, we were going to launch this spring, but we had the migratory ducks come through. And when they came through this time, they brought another strain with them. But like I said, it was only the birds that were purchased and come to live on the farm after 2020, when we had lost those 10 birds. So it was, again, a naive immune system that the birds were affected, and we lost some, but we knew herd immunity was going to kick in. And we also, being natural, Dr. Tsukamoto had offered to work with the Canadian government. We offered to work with them. We kept saying, hey, we have a solution. We have a resolution. Let's work towards this together. And they just pretended like they had, they just ignored our science completely. And they led us to believe that they were working with us, they were going to work with us, and all they were doing was gathering our information. And then we found out that they took the PCR test, simple PCR test, off 2 dead birds. They had it tested at 1:30 in the morning, and they signed the cull order for our entire farm 42 minutes later.
Wow. So you mentioned you would walk among them and give them this antigen. How does that work? I don't understand how it's administered.
How is it administered? It's just like I said, it's a tiny, tiny amount that you give an inoculation to the hen, but it's just the tiniest antigen. And it's the same thing, like I said, when they do natural chicken antibodies. And if you think about it, when you eat a chicken egg, you're eating whatever is predominant antibodies in that chicken. So ostrich are absolutely no different.
So you were like, was this an aerosolized thing, or was it an injection?
No, this is a needle. We give them a needle. But like I said, and we monitored very much to make sure that the animal was not infected or affected in any sense of the form.
So the government doesn't recognize your science?
No, they won't acknowledge us at all. And we're natural. That's what we are saying. We're offering something that's completely natural.
Did they have concerns about
the government be all over it?
Did they tell you why, or did they not like your protocols, your biosecurity issues, or
they
was it?
Absolutely no. We've been 100% under quarantine, and we've been following every rule to be very strict. And in the beginning, to protect the public, because we weren't sure what we were dealing with. So we've been very strict with everything. The biggest thing with the government is we believe that this goes beyond just our science. This is to take down all the small farms. And this is where it really hit us. This is more of a movement. It's just not our farm and just not our science, but this has to do with our food sovereignty. This has to do with taking animals out, and they want farmers. They only want if you have 100,000 chickens or more. They want you to be all your animals in buildings. They don't want these backyard people. They don't want farmers to be able to have their animals out in fields. They want to be able to control it. And we were like, we're literally losing genetics. We're losing, we're weakening. Like we said, there's some farms that they have replenished 4 times with their chickens. And they turn over a chicken farm in 100 days. So it's no big deal to just clean up, get paid out, and replenish your barn. But when they hit us, it was all about, we have a science that you're ignoring. They kept telling us they were interested in the science, but truthfully, they were just gathering our information. And then they said to us, oh, you even have COVID-19 antibodies? We said, yeah, we do. And they said, oh, well, we'll be coming for all of that, too, when we come for your birds.
What do you think they meant by that?
They're taking all our antibodies.
I see. So they're not happy with either the avian flu research or the COVID research that you've been doing, is what your assessment would be.
Absolutely. We think it's definitely that they weren't giving any credibility to the fact that we have a natural solution. We even offered immediately to work with the ducks, and they said, no, that's not we have nothing to do with wildlife. And we said, well, you're the government. Absolutely, you have to have something to do with wildlife. And we said, since this is an aromatic virus, we said, let's work with it and let's create a solution. Maybe we could do some pellets, feeders along the migratory path from country to country, and make a pill that's aromatic, that when they eat it, it gets dust and it becomes aromatic. And we actually stop it at the source. Not at all interested in anything we had to say.
So some of these birds you've had probably for decades then.
35 years. And that's what we said. It's absolutely heartbreaking. These are our pets. They have names. We love them to death. And we cannot imagine
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I get emotional every now and then about it when I start thinking about that. But they're not going to die. We have amazing support. We're getting great awareness.
Mm-hmm. How many people do you have out there right now?
On average, we have about 15 to 20 people here, amazing supporters that are here all the time camping. On weekends, we go anywhere from 30 to 50 people show up. We're getting the awareness out there. We're talking to MLAs now. They're all very receptive. My daughter, Katie, has been the face and the media for this.
Mm-hmm.
She's done an amazing job of getting the awareness out there and telling people what's going on. And and really trying to understand, because what they're doing is so overreached, and the policies need to be changed. For 21 years, stamping out has not worked for them. And so if it isn't working, then they're literally heading us into a pandemic if they keep putting naive immune systems in place and calling out the birds that are strong, that have the immunity to it. So it's very important that we protect it.
So this is, I guess it's become very political in a way.
Absolutely, it is becoming very political.
Yeah. And I guess you're getting some support from, I think Jim Kerr, Papa Bubbles is out there, and you have...
Absolutely. Yeah. He's hunkered down here too, and is following this. And like he said, this story needs to be told, it needs to be shared, and we've really got to get the awareness out there. So, bless his heart, he's doing a fantastic job as well.
Yeah, what other groups are you getting support from? I think some people I know from BC Rising are helping you. Are there other groups too?
BC Rising absolutely has been very instrumental. They hunkered down from day one with us, and the girls are just fabulous for digging up information. They helped get the website going right away, business cards. They were on it immediately, and they do little rallies and are just constantly working in the background for us. And then there are meetings every week, bringing awareness and allowing information to be shared. We're very, very fortunate to have such amazing people supporting us.
Yeah. Does the CFIA still have restrictions on you? What are they? What are the rules that they're making you follow right now?
We are still under strict quarantine. So nobody could go near the birds. They have it outlined in a map where we're quarantined. All our gates are locked. Obviously, the birds don't fly. They're no threat to anybody. They even say on their own website, after 14 days, the animal does not shed the virus anymore. Well, we're at 113 days of happy, healthy animals. So why are you even bothering with us anymore? It doesn't make sense. We should be just over this and left alone. And instead, we're $160,000 in legal fees. They had 4 lawyers to fight us in court. It's just absolutely asinine what we're going through. Mm-hmm. But now it's just not us. They're going after so many other farmers. We're getting stories where CFIA can just have a suspicion that one of your animals are sick, and they could come in and start taking over and testing. And we have one gentleman, before the test results even came back, they'd wiped out 10,000 of his chickens.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess you were, when you say you're concerned about food supply and that being one of the main issues, were you involved in? Were you using your ostriches for like ostrich oil or food production before 2020 and the pandemic? Is that where you were?
Absolutely. We were all about, we considered ourselves the leaders in the industry, and we were trying to teach farmers how they could buy birds and that you would be able to utilize the entire animal, and that you could make a living off one hen versus a cow-calf. You get one calf, it produces you about 700 pounds of meat. One hen on a small land mass, half an acre, could produce you 20 yearlings to market. So now all of a sudden you're looking at 2,000 pounds of meat. And it's a healthier meat, lower in cholesterol than skinless chicken. The oil is amazing. It has natural anti-inflammatory components to it, very high in omega-3. We studied the omega-3 6 ratios and worked with UBC, skin cell replenishment, eczema treatments. So we totally were in this industry and have hunkered down in this industry to try and show that this bird was so valuable. And when the pandemic hit, we had 3 processing plants got shut down. We just came to a halt. And then we were like, oh man, what are we going to do? We have all these birds. What are we going to do? And this is when we started studying that immune system and realized this is maybe our calling, is to make sure that we could come up with a natural solution for treatments. We can actually do treatments for animals or people and start saving lives in both directions.
So that was, I guess, your business solution when so many people were struggling during the pandemic. And you've discovered, I guess, that even, I guess, this kind of research into COVID and avian flu, this sort of bio research that you're doing in your own way, is extremely lucrative as well. In fact, I think I saw in a video that Jim Kerr posted that just one egg can be worth as much as $90,000. Is that accurate when he said that?
Not that high.
Yeah, it seemed a little
valuable. Absolutely, one egg worth of antibodies. So we can mass produce them. One ostrich egg is the same as 100 chicken eggs worth of antibodies. We're 50% more effective in the tests that we did than chicken antibodies. So the value of one egg, we had heard from one scientist, had said, wow, because he was dealing with blood antibodies from a rabbit. And he said, wow, he goes, one egg, and he did the math. He said, would be equivalent to about $46,000 worth of antibodies.
Wow. So still pretty substantial. Of course, I guess when you were working with this researcher in Japan, you probably were working on some sort of I don't know how you were getting paid, but were there grants involved or international, or just?
We were just all in the studies of it. We haven't taken anything to market.
Yeah.
Like we said, the COVID-19, unfortunately, when that lab collapsed, unless we had what the antigen was exactly like their formulation to be able to duplicate it exactly, to reproduce it, because it would be really hard. So in that effects, everything has come off the two families. We've remortgaged our homes. We put everything into this ourselves to bring this science forward, and hunkered down and believed in this, because like we said, when you can produce a natural antibody to provide people, this is something that needed to happen. And so, no, we haven't had any grants. At the time of when we got hit, we did just put out a business plan because we were looking for partners to take the science further. But that's why we were working on a diet pill, because it was more of a nutraceutical with benefits for diabetics, but not therapeutic where we would have to do clinical trials or anything.
Yeah.
So we were just doing something that was easier to get into the marketplace so people could understand that we had these amazing natural antibodies to provide the world.
Yeah, and I'm told that even before you got into this level of research, you were on the cutting edge of your industry because you were involved in selective breeding and making, even supplying other farms with ostriches. Is that correct?
Yes, we were totally into. My business partner actually went to Africa and handpicked a lot of the genetics that came over to Canada. And then when the breeder market collapsed, there was never an industry, but the breeder market collapsed. Two families decided to hunker down and put our resources together and start to study the meat of the bird, because back in the day it was $40,000 a bird, and so nobody would dare eat them. It was $1,200 a fertile egg. It was $2,500 for a day-old chick. So it was a very lucrative market just as being a breeder market. But we always looked at it a step further. My husband, Esperson, was the first president of the Alberta Ostrich Association for 4 years. And so we really got involved with the family there and understood where this was going. And then when the industry was getting to a point where it was slowing down, everybody started to export. And my sister actually went on to New Zealand with a large group of birds and did an export there. But a lot of people started to export out. We decided to hunker down, and we really stayed with the idea of we had a huge knowledge base, and we didn't want that lost. We understood the birds. We worked with some of the top vets in Canada on understanding the ostrich treatments and then hatching. And so we just didn't want any of that information lost. So we thought, someone's got to be the pioneer. It's been a long, hard road for us, for sure, being a pioneer in the industry. Would I ever do it again? I don't know, because it has been. But at the end of the day, yes, I would. Why? Because I once told my kids, these animals are going to give back something amazing. You wait and see. They're going to do something amazing in this world. And now they are. And we're trying to embrace it.
So the CFIA does offer compensation. Is it adequate?
No, absolutely not. A bird is worth $7,500 a piece, and they're offering, or they're not offering. They say they cap at $3,000. Now they say only special genetics might get. Well, no, even at that, it's only $3,000. That's the cap. They don't care what you have. They stop at $3,000.
I see.
So is there irreputable harm to two families here? Absolutely. Should they have considered that? Absolutely. Are they now committing a criminal act to come kill a healthy animal? Absolutely.
Wow. So I guess you've really been running a cutting edge research facility there. And I guess that's also why you consider your birds to be of significant value.
Absolutely. And that's what we said when they say we had to prove that we had valuable genetics. Absolutely. We're a research facility. We're doing something better for mankind. Is that not worth looking at?
Mm-hmm. But you're saying they're ignoring your science. On what grounds, or have they given you any to sort of dismiss the work that you're doing? Are they not happy with your protocols, or?
No, they just said the science could continue whether you're here or not.
I see.
But it's just another reason for them to stamp out. Like we said, by the time they initially gave us 3 weeks to a month to kill our own birds. And we said, okay, well, if they're done shedding after 2 weeks, we know we're going to hit herd immunity. And we were like, okay, we'll just stay hunkered down, protocols, do everything like we do, and we know our animals are survivors. So now we want to keep the survivors. That's what it's all about. These animals are resistant to the virus. We're not going to get it again. You want these animals left here. They're in the migratory path.
Right.
But no, CFIA just said, they said, tell us. And then once they knew everything about our science, it's like they're trying to shut down our science completely. And we feel that from the COVID-19. We were totally sabotaged. And BC Rising's been digging into it. Nobody could still find out who purchased that lab.
Hmm. How many birds in total died?
69. We did lose an amount. It was, it was H5N1 coming through. But and this was a whole other thing, is our virus was a hybrid. But CFIA didn't give us any of this information about the genome sequencing or that of the virus until a week before cross-examinations. So our scientists never had a chance to really observe it, look it over, and see. And they said, well, once they studied it, they said, oh my goodness, this is a hybrid. There was a low path and a high path together, which is really rare. But the high path, CFIA says they've never seen this in Canada before. Well, then what do? You quarantine, you test, and you monitor, because you don't know, is it high path or low path? You're guessing at this point. But the scientists said the minute it was a hybrid that had two, they said automatically wouldn't have been as strong. But definitely, obviously, it was something that our birds their immune system wasn't aware of or immune to. And so absolutely. The weaker ones were going to die off. But in relevance of it, 15% only died off. Now, if you look at 15% dying off, if it was a high path, 75% would have died off. So if we just look at the science and the facts to this, we shouldn't be even looked at right now, because obviously it wasn't a high path. And then the scientists are saying, well, no, and it was actually a hybrid. So if it's a hybrid, it couldn't really be a high path. But everybody's ignoring the science as well. And then they just literally, when we said, hey, can we do our own testing? We asked the first aid, can you test more birds? No. We asked the first aid, can you leave us with some tests to test the other birds? No. Then we went to court and we said, hey, can we test our eggs? Because with the eggs, which are sterile when they come out of the hen, we could literally prove that they're not shedding, they have immunity, and we can prove all of this out, and that they're healthy, and that they have these amazing antibodies. And the judge said, well, you know what? He said, you can put it in, but I'm going to tell you my answer's pretty well, you'd get me mad if you even ask. He said, because we're only doing judicial review. Did they make the right decision on that day? And he said, so this really has no relevance whether it's tested. And our lawyer said, doesn't justice want to know? And he said, you know my answer pretty much. If you want, try and submit it. So obviously we're going to court with the same judge, so our lawyers are like, well, we didn't really want to piss them off, so we're just going to let that go for now. So again, we're basically turned down. They said they were asking them on the side because they want the lawyers to say still no. So they asked the lawyers, they said, okay, can we test our eggs? And they sent us back an email, and they said, you know what? It doesn't matter if all your birds test negative now. We still want them all dead. Now this has to do with trading partners. And we're like, we're in a remote area. We're 100 miles away from a chicken facility, a commercial facility. We're not trading in our zone at all. So how do we affect trading partners? Or is this just stamping out the science and stamping out another backyard farm?
Well, as I stand back and look at this, I suppose, just to play the devil's advocate, it's about their authority, and they want to preserve that authority, as I'm just theorizing here, but they want to preserve their authority because they would feel they need the ability to act quickly and not provide the option to anyone to take any of their own actions. And therefore, if they allow you to engage in different alternative solutions, it would be an affront to their authority, which is really what the court case is probably more about rather than the science. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. Now, they can't be wrong, and that's what it is. When we questioned them and we said, look at our birds, when they showed up here, we recorded it, and we said, look at them, they're all healthy. You can see they're healthy. We said, shouldn't you have been here like 2 weeks ago when they were dying? And they said, yeah, we should have. But they gave us, because they were a large animal, they gave us the time period to kill our own. So they obviously knew it wasn't a high path if they're giving us a month to kill our own animals, which obviously they're our pets and we're not going to do because we know now they're healthy. So they're just exercising their authority. But we asked them, now the stamping out policy isn't working. Obviously, you've been doing it for 21 years. You have 500 and some farms infected. Some farms have been replenished 4 times over. And they said to us, you're right, it's not working. We're looking at other things. And we said, okay, well, today's the day we start changing policies. Let's start working with the farmer. Let's start doing exactly that. Quarantine, monitor, test, and retest, and study this. And let's start building a herd immunity. Let's start saving the survivors. Because as viruses mutate, we're either going to, they all mutate, so are we going to allow the immune system to kick in and be resistant so it mutates down? Or are we going to keep putting in naive immune systems and it's going to mutate up and we're going to end up with a pandemic? Oh, but by chance our government went and bought $500,000 worth of antibodies.
I guess well, you're dealing with frontline bureaucrats. They're not policy makers. So it's sort of like talking to a brick wall at that level, though, I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we're taking it further to MLAs. We're taking it to our MP. Scott Anderson has shown support. We've got Jordan Neely is actually taking it with Katie, our daughter, is going to legislation tomorrow in Victoria and speaking on our behalf. We have Teresa Weatherhead, another MLA locally. We've had Lyle Oberg in Alberta. We're really trying to get momentum now within our government to say our policies aren't working. We're all guided by the World Health Organization, but they don't say these are rules you have to follow. They actually, if they would have did their homework, in Africa last year, in October 2024, South Africa stopped culling ostrich. They realized that they have a herd immunity. It was important to start preserving some of the genetics, and it was important that they allowed this to happen. So they quit. They actually put in where they are not culling ostrich anymore in South Africa. But CFIA didn't update their policies. Everything was to 2023.
I guess part of the concern that they would have with ostriches is that they're a larger bird, they're stronger, and as I just did a little bit of reading before doing this interview with you, there are concerns, I guess, that they can be asymptomatic carriers of viruses like COVID or avian flu because they're stronger. Is that one of the concerns that they would normally cite? But now you're suggesting that over in Africa, they're finding that that isn't as much of a concern.
No, and they say asymptomatic, that it's hard to tell. We've worked with these animals for 34 years. I can tell you in a heartbeat when my animals are sick. I can tell you in a heartbeat when they're not feeling good. So maybe to the average person, they might look asymptomatic. But in the same respects, if you're an ostrich producer and you've been working with your animals, you can tell. And you can also do exactly what we did in 2020. Quarantine your entire farm, and we did that on our own we were told we had Pseudomonas, which is a bad bacteria, and it's a non-reportable disease. Well, now we find out Pseudomonas is a secondary part of the virus of H5N1. It's the bacteria that the ducks release off it. And so our birds died from Pseudomonas in 2020, and maybe they died from Pseudomonas this year also. But nobody's testing that. Nobody wants to do further testing. And ostrich, if we quarantine them and we monitor and do this with all our species and chickens, there's backyard chickens that are so healthy, and I believe it's the lunatic farmer even says if they eat 3 blades of grass, it just strengthens their immune system. So the backyard chickens are the healthiest chickens. You put them into these big buildings, they're breathing the same air in all the time, and they're so confined in that one area. But the same thing with chickens, they will die overnight. Ostrich, it takes about 4 days before they really go down. But you can tell that they're going down. So you can quarantine them, you can separate them out, and you can save most of your herd. And that's what we've did. That's exactly what we did. And then even when they say there's no treatment, well, we're a little bit more natural and homeopathic, and we believe there's a treatment. But that's a whole other thing to go down, which probably isn't, I don't know if it's worth being a whole other topic at the moment. But the thing is, it is possible for all of us, even the chickens, they'll die overnight. Guess what? They're still survivors. So when CFIA shows up at that doorstep, the dead ones, the weak ones are dead. The survivors, the resistant ones are still alive, and they're the ones that are getting killed. So why are we not just working on more of quarantining, cleaning up, disinfecting, and keeping the survivors so we weaken this virus out?
So these birds that you've had all this time, I guess that they're valuable to you because you've used them for both COVID research and now avian flu research. And how does that research work? Do you have to separate the birds, some for COVID, some for avian flu, or there was overlap in time and you've transitioned from one to the other, so you've been able to use them all for the same research? How does that work?
We can separate. We have them already separated into two large groups, so we could do one of each if we were doing it. But each year we've just taken on one particular thing, and we do all the hens on the farm.
I see. So some of these birds have been used for both, and they're producing antibodies on both sides?
Well, it's whatever is predominant at the time. So when it was COVID, then yes, it was COVID that was predominant. And like I said, these animals, they naturally have a temperature of 102. We have to get up to that to fight off something, a sickness.
I see.
So we're very fortunate that these animals are so efficient at fighting off any problems that they have.
This gentleman in Japan you were working with, he was working on some novel possible solutions as well, involving masks with antibodies. Can you explain how that was working or was supposed to work?
And now the science is even coming out with that. Stephen Pellick did a huge thing on how breathing through masks, there's still viruses and that can get through, right? And a mask is used to lessen the chance of that, but it can get through. So Tsukamoto took a step further, and he was using antibodies to put a third layer, a middle layer in the mask. And so as any virus would go through, it would actually stop it. It would block it at that point. And so it would kill the virus within the mask before you would get a chance to breathe it in. And so Tsukamoto was doing, and Japan, they very much believe in wearing masks and that.
Yes.
And I guess he's had great success with it. But he's gone on to he's done a lot of projects. He's got 36 plus patents. He's published just under, I think, or maybe even over now, 100 papers. Tsukamoto, they call Mr. Ostrich in Japan. Mm-hmm. He has a whole line of different products. He's worked with the U.S. Army on doing a natural antibody candy for troops. Again, we're talking all about natural products, and that's the beauty of it. He was working on a nasal spray for H5N1 because it's aromatic and works in the respiratory system. And so that was our next thing was we say to the government, we have all these antibodies. Like you're buying 500,000 of some synthetically made, chemically made antibodies that society's getting a little tired of. We're all scared. You're pumping stuff into our bodies. We don't know what we're getting. We're giving you a natural antibody. Like we just can't, we think it's a no-brainer. We don't understand why the government's not accepting our science.
Mm. And I guess his research is still ongoing. Has he had peer-reviewed research, or where is he at with the mask research?
Immediately when H5N1 hit our farm, Tsukamoto, we told him, and Yoshiro Tsukamoto immediately said, "Oh my goodness, my heart's with you guys. I know you love your birds, and I know what you're doing and how valuable you are." He said he wrote a letter that we passed on to the government immediately that said, "You have our full cooperation of the Kyoto University and Dr. Tsukamoto and his work." And he said he had been working on H5N1 for 2 years. He had a treatment. And he said, "I can treat every one of those birds to stop any more deaths and to save them." And the government just ignored it. They 3 letters they ignored from him. And now, understandably, because we're fighting the government, Tsukamoto is in Japan. He's the head of the university, so he's funded by his government. So he's had to back off, and we respect him 100% for that. We said we know that, if the government wanted to work, they had, the sky was the limit on knowledge and research that they could have had. We had a group of scientists in Canada that stepped forward. Now. So now we're bringing Tsukamoto and these amazing scientists from Canada, all over Canada, a group of them that we've been having meetings with and want to take this research further. And again, our government's just ignoring. They're just being bullies. It's all about being correct now, politically correct.
And preserving their authority, I guess. Yeah. How are other farmers in the area reacting to you? Are they supportive? Or I guess some must be concerned, and like anything else, it's some are maybe supportive and maybe some are not.
Over the majority of our community, I think, is very supportive. We do have, and some of the older people that are just scared, uneducated, don't understand, and we would love to educate them. We're all about, like we said, we're not doing this just for our farm. We're doing it for all farms. We're doing it for your farm. So I think no matter what battle you have, you're going to have some people that are going to be against you, but overwhelmingly the supporters far outweigh the ones that aren't. And like I said, the ones that aren't are just, I think, more scared because they don't understand. And we just really took on the time to understand and bring in the scientists and figure out what is going on, what is this that we're looking at, and how concerned do we need to be, and how can we fix this, because we're a research facility.
Yeah. And as a research facility, I guess before and now you need to take extra precautions just to preserve the integrity of your flock through isolation, biosecurity measures, things of that nature, because you're really running sort of a different kind of bioresearch lab or facility.
Well, see, this case, before we were just working on a diet pill, so it was just enzymes in the stomach. So it was very a minute kind of thing, like there was no biohazard of any type or anything with this. But now this one absolutely became more of something to be aware of. But like I said, the ducks brought it in. Nobody's talking about the ducks. Mm-hmm. And that's a really sad thing to say, is the ducks are the ones, and when they leave our farm, they go to the next farm. So that's what I say, is as we go along the migratory path, and these farms just keep getting replenished, shouldn't we be working with that migratory path of those ducks? Because they keep landing in the same spots. Should we not be preserving, like I said, maybe quarantining and building a resistance to those animals along that migratory path?
So do the CFIA rules that they've imposed upon you right now also say that people are not allowed to get near I think you did say that, right? Right now, people are not supposed to be near the birds.
Yes, no, we're still taking quarantine serious because we are by law, under quarantine. Mm-hmm. So we still have all of our gates locked. We have signs up that we're under quarantine. We have pylons on the road so that people know, and through our supporters, we actually have people that monitor the road, to make sure that nobody goes up and is petting them, and nobody can get close to them. So we are still being very biosecure. We're disinfecting our truck every time it comes in ourselves. Yeah. We're using 2 different types of cleaners. So yeah, I change rubber gloves from one pen to the other. We're doing what the government expects us to do. We know our animals have been healthy for 113 days, so we're not too concerned. They were more concerned about maybe at this point, I think, the soil, but now it's also when the soil hits certain temperatures that it gets burnt out into the soil, mm-hmm. and we're at plus 24, so and we were very cautious also in the beginning. The government told us to use Prevail. and Prevail 5 minutes upon contact kills the virus. And we were like, wow, that's pretty incredible. So we went out and bought a bunch of Prevail. And if we were losing any birds and in the quarantine area, we prevailed everything. So if anything, our farm's probably less contagious compared, or less having any type of virus on it than your average farm, because we've taken all the precautions.
Yeah. So I see you're getting some media attention, not just from independent media, but even some mainstream, even television stations, and I see I see people throwing balls in there to play with the birds.
The birds. They're like, can we interact? And how could we? And I said, well, we'd thrown in a soccer ball before, kind of thing. And Katie must have told some of the supporters, and they're like, could we throw some balls in there? And we said, yeah, sure. Let's see. They probably like them. And they went in, and wow, they were actually even kicking some of them, and they were rolling them like eggs. We found out they really like the lime green bright ones. But the birds, they're very social animals. They wag their tails like dogs, like people. And that's what they don't understand is we may be a research facility, but we very much love every one of these animals. Like I said, they have names, they have hairdos, they have personalities. And I can walk out and I can tell you how old that bird is, who he is, and what he's all about. I have protectors. I have birds. We've worked 2 decades to get to this point where we can walk amongst our animals and we can pet them. We wanted to try and show this, that ostrich weren't that big, scary animal, and if you took the time to get to know them and love them and understand them, that they too could be like walking up to a cow.
Yeah.
So we've taken the time out, and now we have this, and that's a whole other thing. We say that's another very valuable thing is if we're a research center and you can walk up to that hen and give her that antigen, and you don't have to put her in a squeeze or anything, isn't that what we want to do too? These animals are treated so humane, and they're building these antibodies and putting in their eggs. We're not using blood. Whereas we've heard a lot of times when they use blood of a rabbit, they actually have to kill the rabbit to get all that blood. They'll test it. If they want that blood, then to get the most out of it, they kill the rabbit and they drain the blood. So wouldn't it be a thing that we're creating these in an egg and we're mass producing them in an egg, which is fabulous. So it means we can help that many more people with the mass production of these natural. That's the whole key here is natural antibodies and natural solutions.
Yeah. So, well, I guess that still leaves you in limbo until you get a really. Oh, one other thing. I guess you had one of your birds killed.
Yeah, unfortunately, through the craze and the hype, right? Somebody had said that CFIA was looking for sharpshooters, and so that they were going out and going to different gun clubs and kind of putting the word out. And I think that created a little bit of a hype and a bit of a problem, obviously, because then anybody who was a little bit gun happy started to think, oh, could I shoot a bird? And we have a small group of birds. They sleep in circles, in their own little circles normally. And one group was sleeping closer to the road, and sure enough, somebody in the middle of the night came and shot one of our hens in the head, which is really sad too, because like we said, that hen had a name. She had a boyfriend. She had a family, because 2 hens usually are with 1 rooster. So it was really sad to see that somebody would think that, oh, I'm just going to see if I could shoot one. So we upped our security. And now we have cameras everywhere. And now to a point we actually have night security, people that sit and watch and make sure nobody comes into the farm.
And I guess you're using that security as well because you're concerned that CFIA officials might show up at any time.
Absolutely. And we're not going down without hunkering down, and that's what we've already got a plan that we're going in with the birds. The birds know us. That's our family. So my business partner and I, we've already, no matter what, we're in with the birds. You can't be shooting these animals. There's no reason. And we would like to, if we can, turn around and have the police arrest everybody that's there for either conspiracy of breaking the Animal Health Act to kill a healthy animal, or to, if they do somehow get away with it, to have each one personally charged criminally.
So this is potentially going down a path toward a standoff of some kind.
Possibly, and if that standoff is, we have a huge following of supporters that want to be here for it and want to make sure that we all are one voice standing up to this.
Do you really
This is
think
how we make change?
do you really think police would stand with you?
They do already. They do. They support us, but unfortunately, they have a job to do. And we right now tell them this might be the day you put your badge down, all of you, and say right from wrong. What's right and what's wrong? Do we kill these healthy animals because we're being bullied into it, and we're literally hurting our food source? Everybody says we're going to be short of food in so many years that we can't feed the world. Well, when we're killing millions of healthy chickens every day, yeah, you're right. We're the ones depleting our own food source. There's no reason for it. So it's about time we all stand up, beyond the science. Food. Let's look at food. And we got to protect. If you want your kids to be able to go buy an organic egg, to go buy a chicken, to be able, what's next? If they get away with us, guess what? They're already saying it's in the cows. It's in the beef. They're coming for your beef next.
So for you, this is a larger issue. This is a government issue overall. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
So your issue, what you're dealing with right there is something that has evolved into a broader political battle against the government, really.
Absolutely. Because this policy has not worked. It's not working. There's so many reasons why it's not working. And all we said is let's help work together with the farmers to do change, to do it right. People, you tell me what they're doing to us and how people are getting to know. If anybody gets H5N1, are they going to phone their government? Absolutely not. People are going to shoot, shovel, and shut up. And that's it. So it's about time our government starts looking about how can we work with the farmers? How can we work with them to save their animals, to be able to have the immunity, the resistance to work with them? But when you start scaring people and just say, no, we're going to bully, if we have a suspicion we could come wipe out your whole farm, people are going to be underground chicken farmers in the backyard. They're not going to be even telling you that they got chickens. Like, this is a really serious problem, and we need to address it. And yeah, so it's much bigger than just us and just what we're doing. This has become an awakening and awareness that we really all need to be one voice together. And if everybody wrote a letter to the head of CFIA, if they wrote a letter to your MLA, your MP, and said, we need to stop this and look at this and change policies, then we become one loud voice together. And that's so important.
Well, I guess it's a clash of ideologies because your science is clashing with their science. Your approach to governance is clashing with the government's approach to governance. You're advocating for more of a naturopathic, natural approach. They're trying to sort of take a stamping out approach to try to mitigate the risk. And there's a lot at stake across the board, obviously, because it's the poultry industry. If the virus spreads too far, it obviously can wipe out a lot of birds, and I suppose even result in restrictions on exports to other countries at that level. It's just that you're advocating for one approach and they are advocating for another approach, and there's not much middle ground there.
And Canada hasn't been avian flu free, I believe, for 3 years in a row now.
Yeah.
Like I said, their policies aren't working. They need to start looking at other. They had to put out zones. So if you're in one zone and you're infected, you can't trade in the Fraser Valley. But if you're in another zone, 10 miles away, and you're in another zone and you don't have it, you can trade. And they had to do that because otherwise Canada couldn't trade at all. So it isn't working, and that's what we keep saying. Why can we not look at another resolution to something that does work and it works for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
And if we start maybe all as a country, we say, hey, we need to look at something different and take a different approach and a better approach at this, we will be protecting our food source and we will be building a herd immunity. And so we are going to start wiping out some of these viruses that come along instead of engage them to be something bigger and just go out and buy another 500,000 vaccines to prepare for the next pandemic that we're creating.
Well, yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't get your name off the top.
Oh, I'm Karen Esperson. I'm one of the owners of the Ostrich Farm.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else today, Karen, that you think I might have missed or that you would like to add?
No, just I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this and asking me to talk, because awareness is everything. Education, awareness, that's how we make change. So it's fabulous. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you speaking with me very much. And there's a high degree of interest with our viewers. A lot of people have been talking about this and asking to hear more about it. So I'm grateful for your time today. And I will definitely check back in with you because this is obviously a story that's going to evolve. And I certainly hope for the best for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you have a great day, and I'll check back with you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. So we are trying to provide as much information as we can, and on all sides to give you full balance. We're going to go to the phones here in a moment. In fact, why don't we do that now? We'll go to the phones, and then we'll share some additional information. And I know Dragon has been doing some work on this today as well. I asked him to assist to make sure that we give full context, and we'll find out what he has been able to dig into when we come back on the other side of this. Here's the number to call. Okay, Mavericks, it's call-in time. Join the conversation. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Exercise your right to free speech. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Call 1-647-734-4220. Then enter the PIN number 860-075-764, followed by the pound sign. Maverick News. Call now. The world is watching and listening to you. Okay, let's bring Dragon in from Montreal, who has been doing a little of additional research. And hello, welcome back, Sir Dragon.
Well, hello, Maverick. How are you?
I see that you're taking it on the chin there in the chat just a little bit, just because you did a little research so we could present all sides on this. But but we don't care because we're dedicated to bringing you information that gets us all closer to the truth, one way or another, even if some people only want to listen to one side of a story. Dragon, where do we begin with the? Where do you think you were looking at what the CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, had to say? Should we start there?
Yeah, actually, that's where I wanted to start. For the animal health compensation that is actually given to farmers who has to undergo to cull and basically destroy some of their works. They are allowed to have a beautiful $3,000 for each birds or thing that happened. But yeah, the CFIA, right? They are basically our FDA, right? And what they're doing is basically giving us.
Yeah, kind of. I should say that their mandate is broader. They deal with a lot of agriculture, so they also kind of dovetail into areas where like the U.S. Department of Agriculture would be involved. I dealt with them also in years past with the outbreaks of things like the emerald ash borer, which has been killing all the ash trees. So they had a program dealing with that in this area. But anyway, I understand what you're saying. Just to give people the broad context, they're a very powerful government agency, a lot of power.
Yeah. And the regulation to have a ethical, research lab or to be able to farm is really restricted. As you know, Canadian restrictions are really rigorous on those kind of things because we don't want people to get hurt or be sick, right?
Yes. So just to backtrack, you're talking about this $3,000 per bird is where they'll pay up to $3,000 per bird compensation. So if they do call the herd, or it's a flock, it's not a bunch of cattle, they would receive compensation, essentially like farmers insurance, except they didn't actually have to pay premiums. It's a CFIA program, so they'll just pay out $3,000 a bird.
That's it.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's what it discovered. Basically, it's the animals ordered destroyed, the cuts related to the disposal of the animal ordered to be destroyed. So basically, it's probably what is related would be probably the food, would be probably the litters or what you use to for the cage, or what kind of compound you got. You got other things ordered destroyed, such as contaminated feeds or animal product. So basically, the research could have been actually look at to be one of part of the destroyed culture that they have, right? So that's the cost. And also, I know it's sad, but it's kind of revolving around that research you were doing, and it's probably destroying some result. So,
okay, I'm having a little trouble following what you're saying because of the English issue, but
yeah. So basically, she had to destroy all what is contaminated.
Right. Okay. So they have strict decontamination protocols.
Yeah.
Now, the CFIA, since confirming that they have an infection within the flock, and therefore the whole flock has been exposed because they're all in close proximity to each other.
That's it.
They've imposed strict quarantine rules on that farm ever since. And this is a clip that the farm put together. So this is edited. I don't know. You can see their cuts in these different things they posted, but I'm going to run these anyway because this gives an indication of what these CFIA inspectors were saying when they came in back in January.
What are your expertise on how long would it take to pass through an ostrich? If they were sick, how long would it take before they would die?
It depends on the disease condition, how they respond. It could be hours, could be a couple of days.
Okay, you say a couple of days. We have not had a death on the farm from the flu in 8 days?
Again, we're talking
8 days. 8 days.
Again, that's a different conversation. Also,
not really. It's 8 days. You're saying, you yourself are saying hours to days, just days.
Yeah.
Okay, 8 days, no avian flu deaths on the farm. Again. What can you say to that?
Again,
we need to get proof.
We need more testing.
No.
Yes.
No. That's the challenge. That's the challenge with control versus eradication, right? Because if you get a diagnosis of one bird on a place, that entire population at risk needs to be destroyed.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is, it's frustrating, I think, on all sides here, right? Because what you have, Dragon, is essentially bureaucrats, right, out in the field. They don't make policy. They're tasked with enforcing this law, and they are trying to do the right thing. And that means, in this case, stamping out or eradicating the virus where it is to prevent it from spreading beyond that point. The farmers, of course, here, for various reasons, don't want these animals culled. They're being offered compensation, but for who knows what reasons, they don't want that to happen. So they're saying, well, why don't we just, basically it comes down to they just want to let the disease run its course.
Right.
Which the government is saying, we can't let that happen. I think a lot of farmers, a lot of other, if you went and talked to a lot of chicken farmers, they would say, no, we don't want that to happen. So you're good. And I asked, Karen about this, and, she indicated some farmers are supportive of her position, others not. So it's a very divisive issue. There's science involved here. This, as I said at the beginning of the program, it sort of encapsulates so many issues that we're facing as a society, especially since the pandemic. But it really goes back much, further in time beyond that. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Typhoid Mary story, Dragon?
Actually, I am. It was a nasty one. And if I do remember, it was in the 18th centuries.
So, Typhoid Mary, of course, typhoid fever. She was a carrier of typhoid, never displayed symptoms. And then but as a human being, they confined her for a long time and essentially violated her personal rights because she was a carrier. And it was the work of a scientist who was an expert in the field of contagious diseases at that time, groundbreaking research that he did. He was able to identify her as a carrier of the disease, even though she didn't display symptoms, because everywhere she worked as a cook, people would die from typhoid. And she was the common denominator. They put her away for quite a long time. Then they let her out. And but she was supposed to follow a court order not to work as a cook, and there were certain restrictions that she faced in her life so that she wouldn't infect people. But she ended up violating those court orders and went back to work as a cook, and more people died. And so this raised all these really difficult, terrible questions that we had to face as a society back then that still linger today about conflicting, but the rights of one person versus the rights of everybody. Does one sick person have the right to mingle in the general population? I just bring that up because that's a human being. These are birds. And while they're personifying them here by giving them names and through this social media campaign and protest that they have going on, they're turning these birds into martyrs, essentially, for their political cause. And there is a larger political cause in play here. Anyone who can't see that is just not looking very deeply. It is about the birds, but it's not just about the birds. You've got political activists here. You have BC Rising. You have freedom groups. You have Jim Kerr, who's a political activist, a friend of mine. I know Jim. I know what he's doing, but I'm just a journalist and I'm presenting all sides of the story. There are many layers of truth to this. More than one thing can be true at the same time. And the truth of the matter is here that this is a political campaign. It's an anti-government campaign as much as anything else. It isn't just about these birds.
Yep, I think so too, because you can see where, how can I put that? You have that similarity that comes from the COVID mandate, where you had all those truckers that were at Ottawa or Coutts doing their thing for that reason.
Right.
And you got the same thing coming back. But now it's the confinement of birds for a H5N1 bird flu pandemic going in. So, yeah, this is kind of weird, right? I mean, I know it probably sounds far-fetched to you guys when you're going to hear me say that, but at the same time, it's probably all about our health, and we got to be careful because the poultry is a very large and intricate little piece of thing that is in our life, basically that is part of your life, that, a little thing can just make you sick. And you just don't want that.
Well, that's the other issue here, right? Is we didn't get into too much of this in the interview with Karen, but this virus, this bird flu virus, can transfer to human beings. And if human beings get it, you can die. And we've had deaths because of it. It hasn't been that widespread at this point, but there have been cases of people dying from bird flu. So that's the other issue. Now, here's something else I found. Just as her interview was rolling there, I was not aware of this. She told me that the bird flu was detected there in January. But now I just found this from Rebel News. I was not aware of this at all. And they were charged by the and issued a $10,000 fine. It says here, on or between December 11th, 2024, that's last December, and December 28th, 2024, Universal Ostrich Farms failed to notify the nearest veterinary inspector of the presence of a reportable disease or toxic substance. Evidence gathered through the investigation has been confirmed to be accurate. It is important that you read the entire contents of this notice of violation package in order to exercise your legal rights and obligations. So this is a sort of a separate legal issue. So they were charged with not reporting this outbreak with the CFIA saying they were aware of it back as early as December, and they have the evidence to support that in court. I don't know if this has actually gone to court, so I will say that it hasn't been proven in court at this point. That's a curious thing, and I don't have more information from Karen on that. But yeah, if you listen to the interview, she told me January. And then now we're seeing this. So that's an allegation from the CFIA and charges laid saying that they didn't report it, which would suggest that maybe these allegations suggest they were trying to hide it when she told me that they went to the CFIA. So maybe they did, I don't know. I'm just showing you both sides of this so you can get a better handle on it.
Well, if this allegation is true, basically she did bit like China when, you had the COVID for a while already and they didn't told WHO about it or else other agency, and then you got the outbreak of 2020. So it's I don't want to be like the bad news guy, but this is what it is.
The larger thing is she refers to shoot, shovel, and shut up. I mean, that phrase largely comes from the mad cow outbreak, right? And I know some farmers do that because they don't want a government agency in Canada or the US to move into their operation and cull their entire herd or whatever they might do, right? So you do have farmers who do those sorts of things. They detect a disease like mad cow disease, which is like extremely dangerous, and they'll just take those cows, shoot them in the head, dig a hole, dump them, and then try to cook the records so that they don't get detected, right? And that's what she's saying here is because of the fear of the CFIA and the power that they have. A lot of farmers, because of this kind of thing, may just engage in that kind of activity. But when you have that many chickens, hundreds or thousands, then it can sometimes be hard to hide the numbers because how do you explain suddenly your flock is gone or, a third of it or whatever through your accounting even, right? So these are some of the bigger issues. And then you have the CFIA. Let's bring that back up here. If I can find, here it is here. Okay, I'm going to put it back up. So this is the CFIA statement, which they've issued for media, which we have. And if you read their logic on this, CFIA has acted to minimize the risk of the virus spreading within Canadian flocks and to other animals. All avian influenza viruses, particularly H5 and H7 viruses, have the potential to infect mammals, including humans. So this is a concern for the CFIA. Our disease response is aimed to protect public and animal health, minimize impacts on the domestic poultry industry and the Canadian economy. This supports Canadian families and poultry farmers whose livelihoods depend on maintaining international market access. So what they're saying here is what I've already, what they're saying is if this disease is detected in too many places in Canada, other countries will simply stop accepting Canadian exports of poultry products. That means the entire industry is at risk of being shut down if the disease spreads too far. So they're stamping it out, and that's the response that has been largely supported in the country. Now, you can disagree with it. I'm just telling you what's being done and why. That's what they're citing in the news release here.
Well, that was the good old logic when you had an outbreak of, say, salmonella or other viruses in other industry. You had to basically recall and be able to, confine the situation and make sure that, you are regulating with other countries so you can still import or export. So, yeah, that's what it is, guys.
It's a tough thing, an emotional thing. That's why they offer the up to $3,000 per bird. I don't know that they always get that much, but they do have a compensation program in place so that I can't speak to the actual impact that it would have financially on these people or any farming operation. It would depend on the personal circumstances of the company or family involved. She's saying that those birds are worth, did she say it in the interview? She told me she thinks their birds are worth about $7,500 a piece. Maybe more, I don't know, but that's based on their value for research. Now, here's the other thing, okay? I don't know what she says. She also said that they follow very strict biosecurity protocols. And always have, especially since beginning their COVID research in 2020. What standards they abide by, I'm not exactly sure. I can only say that it seems unusual to me. If you're conducting bio research into COVID, which is a new kind of virus, hasn't been around very long at all, that you would need very, very strict protocols in place. And they, as she said, were injecting the hens with dead coronavirus or a small amount, whatever that means. Nevertheless, injecting them with dead COVID virus. In reality, it's a simplistic way to kind of explain it to the public. A virus is not really a living thing to begin with. A virus is it's kind of debatable what it is. That's one of the reasons it's so difficult to fight it with medications and even vitamins or anything. The human immune system, animals' immune systems are miraculous things because somehow we do tend to find ways to fight these things off over time. But, to fight a virus, very difficult because it isn't like bacteria. So it's not like you can render it inert by spraying it with Lysol or whatever, but it's not the same as bacteria. That's why the common cold is still with us today, because there's no cure for the cold. It's just always out there. And we haven't been able to wipe it out because it's a virus and it spreads and it mutates. To say that it's dead is not exactly accurate. And they render it inert by exposing it mainly to heat. And there are other methods to render it inert as well. But when you inject it, there's always a risk of potential residual infectious qualities, which would be carried over. So especially with a novel or a new virus like that, where you're doing bioresearch, you should really be having extremely strict safety and biosecurity protocols in place, in my opinion. And I think in practice, in most biolab settings where you're injecting coronavirus into a living creature, because you don't know what side effects it might bring. You don't know if there might be unintended consequences. There's a lot that could happen that I don't know. I don't think they know. I don't think any scientists out there entirely know. So you need to be very careful with it. And I think regardless, it's wise to be careful with these things. So what I'm seeing out there makes me wonder after I did the interview and I started to dig more and I asked myself a lot of questions and did a little more digging. It seems to me that this is an unusual facility. Government doesn't recognize the science that they're using. I don't know, Dragon. It's like an open air biolab is what they've set up to do COVID research. And so you've got these birds out wandering around out in the open air. I've
never seen a open biolab.
That's the unusual thing about this to me. Even they're isolated, but here's again, this is just a thought that I had after doing the interview with her. People are worried about bioresearch labs and gain of function research and viruses getting out of the Wuhan lab, right? They were doing COVID research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Everybody's freaking out about that. But here we've got birds being injected with COVID and then left to wander around outside. And as part of a research project, maybe it's okay. Seems a little bit loosey-goosey to me, if you'll excuse the pun. But
it's a form of gain of research.
Well, it's not gain of function. Well, in a way it kind of is, I guess, but it's not really true gain of function research, is it? They're trying to make the birds produce COVID antibodies and that would be present then in the eggs from the hens, which they can then access, by cracking the eggs open and using the antibodies in various ways. So either eat them or inject them into people or whatever they're going to do with those things, make a vaccine out of them. I don't know. She's saying it's natural, but I don't know how natural it is to inject an animal with COVID virus. I don't think that's really natural. You're inducing a response in the animal that you wouldn't otherwise get by injecting an inert or a COVID virus rendered inert. A portion of it, the spike protein into the bloodstream of the animal to force it to produce the antibodies. That doesn't seem natural to me. That seems like an experiment. Now, the other concern that I have, and I think this is quite legitimate, is if a virus can get into your biolab simply because a duck lands there, that same duck could be infected the other way and pick up the virus and fly out and carry that virus a long way.
that's the example I gave to the people on Rumble chat. I mean, look, if you got a duck or any other animal that comes around into your flock, contract that that virus, and comes into your farm 2,000, 3,000 kilometer away, you're probably not my next neighbor, but I'm going to infect you because something came in my backyard, which is a open lab. Doesn't make sense. I mean, it's not cool for anyone, right? It's a risk.
And so I'm playing devil's advocate here. If I'm a farmer with a chicken farm, even 100 kilometers away, and I know that there's an outbreak at the ostrich farm of the avian flu, I'd be very worried about it, especially if I knew those animals were out wandering around. Now, here's the other thing. Another thing, the question that came to me, and maybe we'll call her back and learn more about it later. She says that they're following very strict safety protocols even now. And the CFIA still has a quarantine order in place for that farm. But they've got people camping there. And I've seen videos of them, of people inside the pen with the animals. They've been posting them on social media. They're throwing balls in there to play with the birds. They're and they're encouraging more people to go there to protest. I would say that, you know, that this is going to be, whether it's proper or not, lost you there on the screen. Let me bring you back up. Hang on a sec. There we go. Whether those restrictions are proper or if it's government overreach or not, the reality is those restrictions are still in place. Not supposed to have visitors, essential personnel only to take care of the animals. Everything's supposed to be completely sterilized. Vehicles going in and out, or going out especially, are supposed to be cleaned and sterilized when they leave the facility. But we've got people camping there, more people encouraged to come. So I'm wondering who's will be in violation of the CFIA order. Will it be the Espersons, the owners of the farm, or will it be the protesters themselves for coming in and violating the order? Will it be all of them? If it turns into a standoff between the protesters and the authorities, and who will be arrested? What will be the charges? Who will be liable for what? Will those protesters be facing, you know, long court battles? Are we going to see a repeat of all the kind of litigation that has plagued the Freedom Convoy people? People go there. These are questions that I think are valid and people need to be warned about, because if you're going to go there and support the protest, fine, that's your choice. But you need to know what you're really walking into. And if you think you just go in there to support Sarah, the murdered ostrich, and there won't be any ramifications, and if you think that the police are actually going to support you when they've sworn an oath of duty to uphold whatever law it is, whether you agree with it or not, or whether they agree with it or not, you know, you may find yourself in jail, and you may find yourself facing a lot of charges and a lot of legal bills. And I wonder who's going to pay your legal bills. With all these protests, rightly or wrongly, and a lot of people are pretty passionate about this. So you want to go protest that way, more power to you, I guess. But my job is here. It is to inform people of all sides of the story. And I certainly sympathize with the Espersons. I totally get it. I've seen the CFIA use a lot of overreach in the past, in my opinion. They with what they did here with the emerald ash borer issue, in my view, that whole thing was handled with a heavy hand. A lot of money, government money wasted, in my opinion. I said so in my reports at the time, because I didn't think it would be an effective program. And I was able to find a lot of people who supported that position, and through them was able to convey even that side of the story at the time. So the CFIA does have a record of, at times, you know, using measures that a lot of people wouldn't agree with. Yet at the same time, I understand where they're at. Sometimes they have to follow through with these things, whether they make sense or not. The court case that they're dealing with here in particular, if you think about it, it isn't just about the birds, right? You you understand? I'm going to shut up for a moment and let you kind of weigh in on this, Dragon, if you want to.
Well, yeah, I do remember where their cases at court is basically not only for the bird situation, but also a little bit of the implication of the restriction toward those birds. And basically, like I said earlier, I kind of looked like what happened with the convoy. So,
well, see, the thing for the CFIA, and this is why the judge said you can show us this evidence to show that your birds are healthy, but that isn't the issue that they're dealing with in court right now. What they're dealing with in court is whether the CFIA was operating within the law and whether it was justified for them to do what they were doing based on the evidence at hand on that day, and whether they were operating within the framework of their mandate and the court order that they had, or of their order to enforce those protocols, right? And that stamping out policy. So that's what's at issue. Now so what this has turned into now, though, because we do live in a free society, the Espersons have been allowed to challenge this legally. So they've gone to court. They've been able to delay this for quite a long time. But regardless of whether the birds are healthy now or not, the question at hand is, did the CFIA have the legal authority to order the cull of those birds? And if they did, then that cull needs to be carried out. Because if it isn't, then that would set a legal precedent, which would then neuter the CFIA of enforcing any future actions. Right. So, because you see, if the CFIA capitulates to the request or demands of someone like the Espersons in this case, and say, well, we'll give you, okay, I understand you loved Sarah. This was before Sarah was murdered. You love Sarah, so we'll just give you an exemption. You can let the disease run its course here, and your birds will develop herd immunity over time, and we'll just let that play out. And when they're saying, well, can we just do testing on our own? No, we're not going to let you do testing on your own, because if they allow an exception here, then the farmer down the street's going to ask for one. And if they've already done it there, then they can point to that farm down the street and say, well, they got an exemption. Meanwhile, the guy down the street maybe has a bigger outbreak. He's got 90% of his flock, right, infected, and they're all dying off, whatever. The point is, if they don't enforce the law evenly across the board, if they start making granting exemptions, it becomes very difficult to enforce it at all. And when they need to act quickly, in the case of a spreading virus that could affect neighboring farms, an entire industry, maybe even an entire industry for the country, and export markets, and even affect human beings, all these different concerns, if they need to act swiftly because it's an emergency, if they're handcuffed because people keep asking for exemptions, or if they go in and somebody says, I exercise my right to an exemption and I'm just going to let this thing play out, then the government has no role. So that's the question that is then presented to people. And you can take that position if you want to. I'm just, again, laying this out for people.
Right on.
You can.
And at the same time, I mean, would you like, if you have a farm, Rick, even you're not nearby that farm, that, for example, your poultry get all sick because of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, indirectly, for some reason, they are involved. They will, feel bad about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they don't want to take that risk, probably to, infect the whole country with it, or a part of it.
Yeah. And then if they start, because really what it will come down to is, if, say, they win in court on this, right? And if the ruling is something like, they made a pretty good argument, so they should get an exemption. Well, then say goodbye to government involvement in any of this. And then, what will happen on the other side? People will be up in arms and they'll say, well, why doesn't the government do something about it? And it's because they can't, because every time they turn around, they get another legal challenge, or they get another, the request for an exemption, which ends up being granted. So now the government doesn't have any power at all. And that really, I think, for some of the political activists out there, is exactly what they want, not just for this, but for a broader challenge against government power, period, because they don't like government at all to begin with. So this is an opportunity for them to capitalize on an issue. And I think that's really largely what's going on here too. So you have some people stirring things up out there for political reasons, and that go beyond public health issues, that go beyond the issues facing agriculture, that go beyond the issues surrounding the virus itself. The other thing is, I don't know how valuable these birds really are in terms of actual research value, because they've been exposed to so much at this point. So I don't know within the context or the idea, and I guess you can argue this in various ways. Maybe they're extremely valuable. On the other hand, I think you could also argue that for experimentation, for research purposes, they've been exposed to so many things now that it's pretty hard to put them into a controlled environment to get research data out that is going to be pure and unpolluted, reliable, because if they've now been exposed to COVID virus through injections, particular strains. I don't know how many strains they were involved with. They mingle. There are two groups, I guess, that are sort of semi-isolated. I don't know how much interaction there is between the birds and the two groups. They've now been exposed not only to COVID, but also to the bird flu. Because they're in an open air environment, I don't know what else, nor would the owners know really what they've been exposed to over time. She indicated in the interview that they think they had been exposed to bird flu before, right? And I think she said 10 of the birds died at that time, or maybe they didn't at all. She's saying that the older birds, like that those birds had all been exposed to the bird flu a year or two prior. I'd have to go back and listen again. And that's why they didn't get sick this time, because they seemed to be exposed the last time, but they didn't really get sick. So she's guessing. So because they're not really in a truly controlled environment, we don't really know what those birds have been exposed to in terms of viruses. They're exposed to wild animals. And that's the other thing. If they can get sick because they've been exposed to migratory birds or other wildlife, then they can transmit the disease to other wildlife. So these I think are valid issues. These are the things that I bring it up because these are the things that CFIA is bringing up in their news release to explain their position. I think that's what's being laid out in the court on the other side. And because we've allowed Karen to kind of lay out her arguments in her interview, that's where you and I are kind of rolling things out on the other side now to provide some balance and context that I hope will help people. I saw some people leaving the chat as soon as her interview started because they're thinking that they just don't want to hear. They only want to hear one thing, and that's that the government sucks and they're evil and they're trying to kill us all, I guess, by destroying our food supply. But I don't know if that maybe that will be the outcome of it all. I don't think, honestly, that the CFIA agents who came out there to the farm, I don't think that's what they want. I think they genuinely are trying to do their job to the best of their ability. And they're in a difficult spot. So I feel for everybody on all sides. The agents are in a tough spot. The Espersons are in a very tough position. And I don't want to see anybody get exploited either. So I hope that the protesters, I hope that my friend Jim Kerr is out there acting in good faith and not just taking advantage of a situation. I hope that the people over at BC Rising are also acting in good faith. And I hope that they have the best interests of not just the Espersons, but also the protesters in mind and at heart, because this is very serious business. And we've seen where these things can go. And I keep hearing the same kind of language over and over again, too, from various groups. Come on out and protest. And we have to stand up to the man. We're going to resist the government and get involved in this protest. And then at the end of the day, though, we see people get in trouble, get charged, and then they've got legal bills. And, or worse. And we've seen, this. So I don't know. What do you think, Dragon?
Well, you brought a good point. I mean, in a complex where actually you're doing some research, you're supposed to be sterile. You're supposed to make sure that you don't pollute your stat or your data.
You have control groups, right? You have control groups in research facilities where nothing gets in, nothing gets out. You have a biolab, you're doing research into a virus, you've got isolated animals. You isolate each animal so that they can't cross-infect. You see, whatever protocols need to be taken. And maybe they're following necessary protocols. It just seems to me that whatever they're doing doesn't fit into the kind of protocols that one would normally expect to see for that kind of research, in my view.
I'm not saying this is the protocol. I'm not an expert, but in a big research lab where you got, say, level 4 or high level of discrecy. Normally I see people on hazmat suit or, probably not hazmat, but, a thorough suit that, won't bring your own viruses or whatever, you don't have direct contact with your with your lab.
Even Karen acknowledged that, when they got that first infection of whatever that thing was that went through there, she talked about how they realized and were told that it could have been introduced by someone just like a tourist on their hand coming in, or whatever contamination on someone's clothing could have introduced it onto their farm. So these things can spread very, very easily. It's such a difficult thing, and nobody wants to see animals die, but at the same time, when I drive down St. Clair Drive here in my hometown, I drive right by a KFC. I ate chicken for dinner. They're birds. And that's the difference between Typhoid Mary and an ostrich. An ostrich is an animal. And if you want to make sure that an animal, a species of any kind, does not go extinct, what you do is you make sure that you use it as food. Because farmers, human beings, will make sure that creature will be bred and will be reproduced because we'll take care of it. It's one of those natural laws from God, if you will. Our food source, we'll protect it. That's why cows don't go extinct. That's why chickens don't go extinct. We eat millions and millions and millions and millions of chickens every day. There are probably more chickens on the planet than billions, have to be billions. And we breed them and breed them and breed them and breed them and breed them. And I think it's almost like, I've heard, people far more spiritual and God-fearing than me say that, it's sort of a natural thing with God. It's one of those, how do they put it? It's an oxymoronic thing, right? You think that if you're eating the beef, that the cows would go extinct, but they don't, because it's like a contract or a bargain between the animals and humans. We'll keep you, alive and breeding, but we get to eat you.
For every animal you eat, you got 3 more that has born by the same time. So don't worry about the numbers.
Who's on the phone with us now? Who just joined?
Hi, it's Brian Howell in Kingston. How are you, Rick?
Well, I'm fine, but not suddenly. I have this hankering for some extra crispy. Sorry, don't shoot me. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Oh, maybe it's time to go veggie.
Maybe. Yeah. I bet you I'm not too popular in the chat now, but I did eat chicken for dinner. What are your thoughts on this, Sir Brian?
Well, I kind of new to the issue until Rudy Bruce mentioned it last week. I knew nothing about it, and then the interview tonight, it was a really informative, interesting interview. And as you say, there's two sides to every argument.
Yeah.
I would tend to agree with the what was her name, Karen, well, she lays out a good argument about what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's also this thing is it kind of I wasn't actually going to call in, but then during the course of the interview, just some thoughts just kept ringing through some old research I did over about 25 years ago about a subject. And,
sure.
An unpublished book I was working on, and it reminded me of Richard Shope.
Richard Shope, I don't know.
Probably never heard of Richard Shope. He was, and this goes back a long time. He initiated research in the early 1920s into swine flu, and he was studying the viruses of 1918.
Yeah, Spanish flu.
Spent the rest of his life doing it. So I'm not sure who I'm, but these ostriches, I just don't know enough about it. Are these ostriches sick? What were their symptoms? Does it look like influenza? Did the ostriches, they have runny noses, fevers, watery eyes, everything that Shope was doing when it came to swine flu viruses?
Well, if you look at
I don't know enough. I don't know enough,
Well, if you look at H5N1 research, what they tell you is that basically it's a asymptomatic virus. So basically, like COVID, you could be basically holding the virus for a few days and still shedding basically the virus to others around you and be infected or infectious, rather say, for a few days before contracting the whole thing. So, yeah.
In fact, that's, one of the larger issues with the ostriches is, from what the research I've been doing, it indicates that ostriches are efficient carriers of the disease, even sometimes when they don't display any symptoms at all. That's kind of part of the issue. And then you've had this whole flock exposed. So how long can they carry the virus?
All 400 ostriches exposed to it, or just an element of the 400 strong herd, or
well,
or not?
I think if you've got 69,
the thing of it is, Rick, or Dragon, or myself, if we were to go to a medical symposium and to do a keynote speech in front of doctors and scientists, they would, out of respect, probably listen to it, but they wouldn't take it seriously because I don't have a medical degree. Well, neither do you. I don't think you do, Dragon.
That's very true. I'm not sure.
Now, these people, Karen, do they have a medical degree? Have they studied epidemics?
See, that's where we get the clash, right? Because some people will say, oh, they've got this education or this experience, and so they're qualified. But then when it comes right down to it, that's sort of the issue. Is the government?
They are.
No, the government is saying that their research isn't valid. That's what you're getting on the other side. So it's a clash of two cultures again, very much like, we've had even through the pandemic, where we know which side are you going to believe, who's telling the truth, which is the right approach. And so all I can do is just sit here, present information, and then take the hate in the chat. because I didn't pick the side that people wanted.
Well, I'm sure that if I'm looking, I got also some dragon haters.
Yeah. And I'm not really on a side. It might seem like I'm on a
not,
side, but I'm not on a side. I see both sides, and I'm just trying to lay it out for people.
But I'm not really qualified to offer any kind of opinion other than just a quick commentary.
Sure.
I'm not an ostrich farmer. I'm not in that kind of industry.
Yeah.
I don't have a medical degree.
You do see
I do know a lot about 1918 influenza, and
you do see the legal landmine that is minefield that is laying before the CFIA and the government with this, though, with this kind of legal challenge, right? And the precedent that could be set here, which is why they, they're pushing back.
Yeah, it's a bad thing all the way around.
Sure is, yeah.
And you were talking about biolabs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 50, 70, 80, 90 years ago, Dope did his research in a barn. That's all you had. Those were the buccaneering days of biologics.
Well, I'm just laying it out, man.
Yeah.
I don't know, how comfortable are you with having COVID injected into animals and then leaving them to roam outside, where they can come into contact with other birds and wildlife?
Well, they should not really be doing medical research like that.
Well,
because I hate to be the one to say it, because maybe they don't know what they're doing.
Maybe I don't know.
A farm is one thing, dealing with mad cow or foot and mouth disease, where you have to take down the whole herd.
And CFIA shows up, and they clearly were not aware that they were conducting that kind of research, because Karen said, we told them that they've got both bird flu and COVID antibodies, at which point she said, CFIA said, "Oh, you have COVID antibodies here too?" They didn't know. So what are I don't even know, these raise questions for me. I don't have answers. Maybe everything was done above board and proper. Just raises my eyebrows. So what are the laws surrounding that? Who's allowed to get their hands on this COVID spike protein? Can I buy it and inject it into my dog? I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to be highly controlled. And,
so
it's
were they getting it from this guy?
An interesting interview.
Don't know. Yeah, very interesting. A lot of issues here.
But like swine flu, the pig flu, has elements of the 1918 flu.
Yeah.
At least the mystery of its transmission.
Yeah.
And if you really don't know what you're doing out on a farm in the Fraser Valley or BC, I'm sorry, you have to have a medical degree. You have to have a history of knowing what you're doing.
And you know what's going to happen now? People are going to hate me because I've asked these questions. Because I'm not on board. I'm not a true freedom fighter. No, you know what, man? It's my job to ask these questions. This is what I'm supposed to do. That's what I'm doing.
We're supposed to question stuff.
I have no animosity toward anybody here on either side. I don't hate the CFIA. I don't hate the government. I don't hate the Espersons. I'm just asking the questions, playing devil's advocate, giving people an opportunity to speak. And I hope it helps.
Yeah.
And you know what? Brian made a good point, because what he brought up basically is another recipe for, probably a easy to mitigate virus to mutate into we'll call that a chimera, which is basically something that could wipe out some living creatures. So guys, I mean, we got to be careful with the kind of research we're doing. to a certain extent.
And we need to be careful to understand that a lot of what we're being subjected to is propaganda, because I can see a scenario where this could have easily been flipped around the other way. Can you imagine if Dr. Fauci was injecting COVID virus into bunny rabbits and letting them run through his backyard? Like, it depends on how you look at it. Dr. Fauci sets up open air lab injecting animals with COVID virus, then allows them to come into contact with cats and dogs, and then they went to
I
Ohio
personally,
and
like I
Donald
said,
Trump ate them.
I don't know enough about infectious microorganisms to even talk about it.
Yeah, well,
other than on a most superficial level, and even then, I was hesitant about even calling in, other than to mention Richard Choate, who spent his lifetime working with swine flu and experimenting on ferrets and things like that. But like you said, what happened in the Wuhan lab?
Yeah,
it had a social effect on the entire world.
Yeah, and I'm just looking in the chat here to
still
see
don't
how much
know
hate I'm
a
getting.
lot of the details about it. Still don't know what caused 1918.
And Peach Rose for me says, address the dump pit. Rick, well, what about it? If you call animals, they dig a pit and they burn them, and then they put them in the pit, and you cover it up. That's what landfill is for. Now you can, if you're worried about, I did see a post, well, then it'll leach and you're gonna get ammonia and all these different things. We bury garbage every day in the landfill and you get all kinds of toxic crap from it. What do you expect? Sometimes you have culls of deer in natural settings, you have culls of various farm animals. It happens, and that's how you dispose of it safely. So what do you want me to say about the pit? Peach Rose is for me. And it's not my policy. I'm just what about it?
But it's good that
it is. And Peach Rose is no different than injecting people. It's entirely different.
And trying to create antibodies, that's a good thing. But okay, well, have they done any studies of genes? Where the DNA and the RNA and they have an electron microscope out there studying these things, a hermetically sealed lab. It sounds a little too laissez-faire.
Yeah, the whole operation out there seems, I think it's because they're trying to take this concept of, free range and, humane treatment of the animals. And then but if you're trying to apply that to research, you need very controlled groups, controlled conditions. You need to control the entire environment so there are no external factors, so you can be sure that the results you get from the experiment are valid, that there are no external factors coming in and creating things or side effects or things that you're not aware of, because then you're going to get these anomalies that you can't explain. And if you're allowing these, in my view, if you're allowing them to roam out in the yard, if the purpose is for experimentation and they can be exposed to wildlife, then they could be exposed to other viruses without you knowing about it. And then that could alter the kind of antibodies that they're producing. So I don't know how you do valid research like that, because you can't get valid results.
Are they collecting the mucus from the sick ostriches, and how are they filtering the material?
I don't know.
And then doing it through cheesecloth, or are they doing it in a biocontainment facility?
And this doctor in Japan was, or whatever he was trying to develop masks with a third layer, and then he's supposed to impregnate these things with like attach antibodies to the fabric somehow, so that when the COVID virus goes through the mask, I guess the idea is that it neutralizes the virus, I guess, or because the antibodies touch it, I guess.
Well,
But I
to
don't
me,
know.
that sounds a bit bizarre.
That's exactly what they were working on. And as far as I know, he's got some patents filed, but at this point, I know that they haven't been able to validate the effectiveness of the research. It hasn't been proven that it actually even works. She said they hit a home run and stuff on things like these lozenges and so on, maybe, I guess. But I don't know where the scientific research is to back up the mask stuff because, well, I know that it hasn't been effectively proven at this point, and they never did come to market. So I don't know what the deal is with all of that, but it's just a little more complex than, the way it's being laid out in the other media. Even the mainstream media reports, they're very favorable toward the Espersons, and that's fine. But it's really emotionally
so mine.
based.
My heart goes out to them.
Mine too. I don't want to see them suffer. I don't want to see the ostriches get killed if they don't have to. But I do understand. I understand the issue, and I understand why it's likely to happen, and I think it's going to happen. And it's going to happen. It's not going to happen not because of the science. It's going to happen because of the legal precedent that could be set that could end up neutering the federal government and its ability to deal with pandemics and outbreaks of viruses and all kinds of other emergencies that the country might face. So that's why that's why it's going to happen.
What happens if there's an outbreak of foot and mouth disease in cattle country in Alberta?
Then
or mad cow.
Right. Then you get this clash of ideas again, and then it comes down to this: do you want your government to have the power to respond to these things or not? That's really the question. In the end, do you want your government involved or not? If you don't want them involved, then it's you're on your own. No $3,000 a bird, no government intervention. Good luck dealing with it. If your flock dies off, you're on your own. If it gets healthy, you're on your own too. And maybe you get herd immunity. If that really happens, that's fine. But then everybody's just going to have to let it run its course. This guy down the street might apply antibiotics. This guy might try ivermectin. This guy might try, culling his herd. Everybody would be on their own, but the government wouldn't be involved, and the government likely wouldn't be there with $3,000 a bird. Maybe there'd be some compensation package available. I don't know, but it comes down to that.
Is Karen going to write a research paper on this for Science Magazine?
I don't know.
So what you're doing tonight, Rick, is basically kind of like a peer review.
Yeah, except that I'm not a scientist either, so I guess it's a layman's peer review. It is that. And yeah.
Hold on. According to Judge Otap, you got your own scientist. And he said, Glad Dragon is a scientist. Good that bring that back up.
And Peach Roses,
Dr. Dragon and Dr. Walker are going to be at Johns Hopkins next week and delivering their paper.
and Peach Roses for me says it's the same as injecting people. No, it's not the same. Not at all. People are human beings and people have rights, right? Birds are not people. Birds don't have the same kinds of rights as human beings. They have, we've decided that as a society, we do have laws against animal cruelty, which is one of the things that tools they're trying to use, preventing the killing of healthy animals. So maybe that'll stand up in court. Maybe that'll be the way they save them. But even that is superseded by these kinds of emergency orders from very powerful organizations like the CFIA. But, the other thing that I heard in a post yesterday from Jim is he referred to the CFIA as a corporation. Well, I'm tired of that rhetoric, frankly. I'm tired of hearing that. The CFIA is not a corporation. It is a government agency. And it does have a president, which is just a title, but it's not a president like the president of a corporation. It's a government agency. It's different. It's not profit driven. It doesn't have shareholders. It's a government agency operating as an arm of the government, an agency on behalf of the government, and it has far greater powers in certain areas than any corporation or business has. They have the authority of the government and therefore the people behind them. And we have a new caller coming in. Who's on the line with us now?
Well, good evening, panel. It's Rimby John.
John!
You turned up John. I
Welcome
couldn't
back, Sir
resist.
John.
It's the trader from Alberta calling in, panel.
I've got my flak jacket on.
I got a Jeopardy question for you, gentlemen. What was your term? Shoot, shovel, and shut up?
Yeah.
Do you know where that term originated from?
I think you're going to tell us.
The Premier of Alberta, Ralph Klein with Mad Cow.
Is he the guy who invented that?
He's the guy that invented that. Shoot, shovel, and shut up. That's what he told all the cattle farmers in Alberta. Do you guys not remember that?
Once again, we are in Alberta's debt, John.
Turn. I couldn't resist.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I didn't know that he was the one who coined that phrase, but it doesn't surprise me. And I knew it came from the mad cow disease thing. Yeah, whatever. But I didn't know it was Ralph Klein.
No, it was. But, I really kept our hat against you, Rick from Alberta, Dragon and Brian Held. A very interesting story. I can tell you that my cattle farmers around Rimby, that when there is a deceased animal, in the cattle herd, and it can be a calf, it can be a bull or whatever, they're immediately taken out. They are put in a pit with lime on them, and they're incinerated. Like they're incinerated.
Yeah.
Burned up with lime all over them and cremated. They're cremated. Absolutely.
I'm sure that it'll be disposed of in a safe manner if they are culled.
Well, and here, guys, is the big difference between Canada and, again, the United States. I don't know any cattle farmer in Canada, period, across this beautiful, great country. You take a dead animal out of the herd, and there's lime put on them, and they're cremated. Unfortunately, in the United States, what some of the cattle producers were doing was they would take a dead animal and they would put it in the grinder and feed it in the silage and feed the dead animal back into a healthy live herd. Your story tonight with these ostriches, although I feel very bad for this lady, sounds like a pretty dangerous experimental thing they were up to.
Potentially, maybe, I can't say if it's dangerous. I'm just raising questions. And I think they're valid questions, honestly. And I think the government, John, too, is kind of viewing this going, well, obviously they don't accept their kind of science. So again, you've got this clash of cultures and views on what science is, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, but I think Rick and Brian and Draggy, you guys bring up a great point, is that when you're injecting something into an animal under an experiment and it's running free, wild, you've got coyotes, you've got wolves, you've got birds, beaver, you've got all sorts of different.
Yeah. And I should clarify, just to be fair to the Espersons, these birds are kept in a fenced in area, as you can see from their videos, right? But animals do get in there. You've got birds flying in. If they can get in, and they can land in there. So they're exposed to wildlife that way. And I would imagine all kinds of different small critters get in there too.
Well, I think Brian Howell brought up an interesting point. Do these people have any medical research background or training or schooling, or was this just kind of a home science project? It's really scary, guys. I kind of side on the side of the government of Canada coming in and doing the right thing.
I feel bad. I totally get both sides. I have to also worry very much though about the other farms that are out there. I have to worry about the poultry industry, the devastating effect this could have on the economy if the entire chicken industry is shut down because the government doesn't take actions to stop this thing or minimize the spread of it. And they've been active trying to stop the spread of it for years. And some people say, well, they haven't stamped it out. Like they haven't eliminated the virus, so it's not working. But I don't know if that's an accurate way to look at it either, because it's like a virus. It's like a cold virus. You're never going to get rid of the cold, the common cold. It's always out there. But if you get sick with the cold, you stay home from work so you don't infect other people. If your flock of ostriches or chickens get avian flu and you have like 70 birds die, I guess some sort of action is needed. What is that action justified in being? I cull the whole thing, quarantine them, leave them to roam in an open field surrounded by fencing where other birds can come into contact with them. I'm not sure that's the answer. While they get better and you hope that they recover. I don't know, man. Depends on your point of view.
I do think, Rick, I think that ostrich business, I do think, guys, that was a very expensive business to get into. When she talked about allegedly $7,500 per bird, I don't think she's out of range at all. I think that was, my next door neighbor in Rimby got into buffalo, and it's kind of like the oil stock market. It goes up and down, and that was horribly expensive to get into per animal. And then it fluctuates with the market, the free market.
Yeah. So
how much is one cow worth, on the open market?
Don't know.
Well, it depends on the price of the open market per pound. And if it's got a calf on board, or if it's a bull,
25, 30,000 or what?
Oh, no, you're like $2,500. Depends if it's a bull or a heifer, or it's a mother cow with a calf on board with all the vaccines and shots and preg test. It's free market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just looking up prices for ostriches, and yeah, they could be worth up to, as I'm looking here, chicks as low as $525 to $1,000. 1-year-old birds, yearlings, as much as $9,000. Breeding age birds, 2 to 4 years old, can sell for as much as $14,000 to $30,000. That's crazy, eh? That's a lot of money.
Well, I think it's very niche market. It's a very niche market thing, guys. Like Alberta, like buffalo. It's a very specialized market, I think.
It is indeed. But the reason $3,000 per ostrich is offered by the CFIA is because that's sort of a medium price, medium market price for these kinds of birds. $3,000 to replace stock. So,
well, the government could probably raise that a little bit more.
Probably could. Yeah.
So, guys, I would like actually just to remember something real quick. In 1998, we had another outbreak, right? And it was an outbreak of H5N1, which also had the strain of H7N2. And just to give you an idea, the industry of the poultry was estimated to have lost about 3.5 million. So, yeah. And that's just one part of the, of the loss that we had back in those days. Because if you do remember, most of the country were getting into a sort of a recession back in the days because of that, or it was maybe not a recession. I know that Greece actually was getting in the red because of that situation. because of all the economic problem that it made, that it get on the outcome of it. So just a little idea. We need probably to look into it.
Why is everybody coming after my dog? Peach Roses for me, who loves me, by the way, says, wait till Cosmo gets a flea bite or a mosquito or, heaven forbid, a deer fly. All dogs must go just in case. He wants to kill my dog.
Is that a joke comment or a serious comment?
I think it's a dark joke. He's poking me. Okay, so with regard to the flu, the avian flu, dogs can get it. I looked it up because other people were threatening my dog too the other day when Rudy Bruce was on. I got dog death threats, because I wasn't, whatever. So they're not, first of all, the CFIA is not going to come and get my dog and kill him. Secondly, he could get avian flu, but it's very, very rare that dogs get it. And so I'm not that worried about it, but thanks for the warning.
Well, Rick, how many threats did you get? Because Brian Halden, we got what, Brian? 60,000 threats on Operation Holy Father?
Yeah, that was a ridiculous number. I counted every single one over the 2 months that followed.
Well, I don't know. What else are we talking about tonight? Anything else you guys want to add on this, or anything else you want to talk about?
Just guys, a comment is, there's a huge difference between the federal government of Canada on our health regulations, and that can be for the cheese or egg industry, milk, dairy, very, very higher standards than in the United States of America. Like, they've got a much, much lower bar. And I think that's probably why we have probably a much safer food system. Any comments?
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
On many fronts, I think you're right there, John. And I know that the standards are such in Canada that for the dairy industry, for instance, not using the kinds of hormones that they're using down in the U.S. and things like that. So yeah, I know there's different standards for sure. Other thoughts, guys?
Well, I'm reflecting actually on some of the chat, and it's weird because the people are debating on the situation. And I'll tell you what, we need probably to look into it. And I think that the people need to look at the truth here, because, you don't want to have another outbreak like the 98 one. That's for sure.
That wiped out 100 million people worldwide. 1918, 1919.
Yeah.
And considering the population at that time, that's why people were referring to COVID-19. You look back into history, there are not that many precedents to draw from. 1918. Well, COVID wasn't quite like 1918. There's nothing like that.
Yeah.
And we still don't know. Although, there's been a couple of latter-day researchers in the 1990s that traveled way up there. Spitsbergen, Alaska, where the Eskimos were buried in 1918 to free samples and study them. And that's why I'm a little bit concerned what these people are doing in DC with the ostriches. They're playing researchers, and they maybe don't really understand what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Like, I don't know how to do what you do, Rick, because I've not been trained. I have no clue. So you're an expert in what you do, and you're damn good doing it. And John, you're working the farm and the oil biz. I know nothing about it. A little bit of research, but I can't do it. I do what I do. Rick, you do what you do, and John and Dragon's out
there slaying dragons and evil dudes and stuff. He's out there all day
cheering for the damn Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
I like to believe that I'm a thinker, so.
Stay on the line there, guys. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
So, Brian, you sent a thing about a fake AI thing with Mark Carney, and we were going to talk about that tonight, but I got a suggestion. Maybe because it's getting so late in the evening, maybe we can save that for tomorrow, because it might actually fit in tomorrow better, because Dragon and I were talking yesterday about doing a whole segment on free speech. And then I'm going to explain why the chat has been turned off on the YouTube channels when we get into that discussion. And that whole discussion we had would tie right into that. So if you're available
that
tomorrow,
sounds good. Yeah.
could we do that?
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. And then Sandy Sunshine sent me a link telling me that Michael J. Fox is releasing a new book. So I thought that would be a great thing to close the program off with tonight, because it takes us back in time, back to the past. And I just find the Michael J. Fox story in many ways inspirational. And so I thought maybe I'd bring that up and then get you guys to comment as sort of our final top news story of the day. Let me get him. There we go. I need this one. I'm going to show you that he is writing a new book, or he's releasing a new book. There it is. Future Boy. Michael J. Fox announced his new book, Future Boy, detailing time and Back to the Future and family ties. So, boy, that was way back in, get this, 1985. Can you believe that? Holy smokes.
Wow. Let's go back in the time machine, Rexter.
Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Does that resonate with you guys? Are you big Back to the Future fans?
Well, what was that? What was the name of that special car they used with the little door that flipped up?
The DeLorean.
Brian, DeLorean, and Brian and Rick and Dragon. Do you know why the DeLorean came with snow tires?
To drive in the snow?
No,
from Canada.
No, that was the old joke, guys, with the DeLorean. The DeLorean always came with snow tires. Guys, you don't remember that joke?
No.
Oh, okay. I'm kind of picking up,
The DeLorean guy
because
came with snow tires because the guy that built the car
got caught
was caught with $15 million in cocaine to refinance his company.
Right.
Comes with snow tires.
Oh.
White snow tires with a spoon.
You know your history.
Boys and girls.
You do.
Sorry.
Yeah. For all you younglings out there, who, by the way, based on ostrich values, make you much less valuable than us older, I'll say breeding stock.
Rick, you have to explain the joke. The DeLorean comes with snow tires.
Well, I did.
You
It's
have
because
to explain the joke to our Wolf family.
because John DeLorean, who is the founder of the company, who was former big General Motors executive, left GM to create the DeLorean Motor Company, and he ran into financial problems when he was producing these cars in Ireland, and then he got caught in a big cocaine deal that he was going to use to finance the car company and keep it afloat. Now, he said he was framed and he kind of got off on the charges and stuff, but it became pretty clear that, he was he was doing some things maybe he had not been doing, and he's a big coke boy. So there was that sort of darker side to the DeLorean story. So that's why it comes with snow tires, because of the cocaine. That's why.
It's still quite a car wreck, Dragon. That's a little before your time, my friend. You wouldn't have got that joke.
Yeah. I want one of those hoverboards, though. The scary thing is, it seems like we're about there because we're getting into technology that can kind of do stuff like that. But I don't know how you put the brakes on a hoverboard. Pretty cool. Great movies, though. They were just they still stand up today. They're just so good.
I'm an extreme guy from the 80s, but don't put me on a skateboard because I do 1 meter and I get my face planted. So no overboards for me, please.
Dragon, you missed Studio 54, my friend. Liberace, Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin. You missed Elvis leaving the back of the building in the limo, bro. Donna Summer. Oh, Brian Howell, come on, jump in here, bro. Help me out. Oh, Dragon, you missed a lot of things, bro. Let's go back in the time machine, Rickster.
Yes, well, we're going to do that, John.
It's
We're
50 years. 50 years since Jaws came out.
50 years since Jaws. This is like the 40th anniversary for Back to the Future. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the end of World War II, at least the German end of it, for Russia. So they're having that big
Vietnam,
victory day. Yeah. But boy, I'll tell you, seeing these heroes of our youth age, become ill, Michael J. Fox with Parkinson's disease, like Muhammad Ali, struggling with it, and raising awareness. It's heartbreaking, but that's the way life is. Even Bruce Willis, Gene Hackman, horrific death. And yet through it all, Michael J. Fox, today, I think he's doing a great service for humanity, for our society. He does step up, and he is providing. He's out there, raising awareness, trying to do good things for people, and that's why I like him now.
And Rick, he's a Canadian. Rick is a Canadian.
He is, yeah, Canadian. He's a Canadian. And John, I love you. I'm sorry that I kicked you off the show the other night.
Oh, I got a thick skin. You got to do more than that. I couldn't resist calling in tonight with the shoot, shovel, and shut up from Alberta. That's a real Klein classic there, boys and girls.
But I'm glad you called in, because you may not even realize it, but you are a great Canadian. All you guys are.
Well, thanks you. Well, I love you guys. Love from Alberta. We love everybody.
And I have one trivia question for all of you and the audience. What speed does the DeLorean have to travel at to travel through time?
86 miles.
Nope. Close.
Warp speed.
Nope.
Um,
Come on, guys.
105 miles an hour.
No.
Okay. On the flip side, no.
All good guesses.
On the flip side,
all
no.
good guesses. But the answer is the DeLorean has to hit 88 miles per hour. And that's exactly the speed that it reached. They talk about it in the movie. When
I was 3 miles away.
When it hit 88, just as it as that streetcar style electrical rod hit that overhead wire when the lightning bolt came down and energized the car at 88 miles per hour. And then it was able to travel through time. And that's why Maverick and the News Brothers, in this next song, that's why it's titled Magic 88. That's why I called it that. And that's what the lyrics are about. Maybe people weren't picking up on that, but I love this song. And I'm going to close off the program tonight with that. Maverick and the News Brothers, Magic 88. It's all about Back to the Future, the DeLorean. And man, I wish we could go back to the before times. I really, really do. But at least we're going to, reminisce a little tonight. Love all you guys. See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern on the
Flip Side.
Flip Side.
Future's in sight, the DeLorean's ready, it's time to ignite. Stainless steel with the gull-wing doors, this machine's built to break all the laws. Flux capacitor lights the way when the speed hits 88. Through the years the world will know this time machine's the star of the show. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar, past, present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Hit the gas, the roads a blur, in the blink of an eye it's all astir. Lightning bolts power up the ride, with Mr. Fusion charged up inside. Fueling the future with scraps in hand, turning trash into power, that's the plan. From Hill Valley to the stars above, the DeLorean's ride is the one we love. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar, past, present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Great Scott, we're on the move in that DeLorean, we found the groove. From Doc's wild ride to Marty's scream, this car's the heart of the dream. Movie magic shining bright, DeLorean's wings ready for flight. Through history it stole the show, now forever it's the car we know. Magic 88, we're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar, past, present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. When you see those lights aglow and the tires blaze as the legends go, remember the ride that made us believe. With Mr. Fusion's power we never leave. We're flying through time in a DeLorean, feeling so fine. With Mr. Fusion we're set to soar, past, present, future, forevermore. Magic 88, hold on tight, in the DeLorean we light up the night. Great Scott, we're on the move, in that DeLorean we found the groove. From Doc's wild ride to Marty's scream, this car's the heart of the dream. We never leave.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.